Three, two, one. TikTok, YouTube, TikTok, YouTube, YouTube, TikTok. Tick you, you talk, talk you. Here we go. We've done it yet again. Bibbidi bobbidi boo, glory me and mercy me. Here we are, doing it again, as we do, Tuesday through Thursday, at least. Trying to do Mondays, but boy howdy, does that turn into a real shit show. Real proud of what I accomplished today, right? Hung out with a friend, which is always lovely, but also got myself a chin-up bar, got myself some heavier weights. Really proud of myself. Real proud of myself that I actually went out there, got into the world, got myself heavier weights. I've been getting back into working out. I used to do like beekeeping, right? And when you're doing beekeeping, what are you doing? You're lifting a lot of hives and a lot of boxes and things like this, right? And I was also working out at the same time, so I used to be pretty fit. Right? I used to be doing okay as a younger man. And then, of course, COVID hit. COVID blows everybody up, and COVID's a disaster. And so, but now I'm getting back into working out, and very quickly it's coming back. I've only got little 10-pound weights, unfortunately, because, you move around. You don't want to be moving giant weights around. But today I got myself some 25-pound weights. They're a little heavy, I'll admit it. I was hoping for 20s, but the establishment where I was at didn't have 20s, but they had 25s. So I thought to myself, you know what? 25s are going to be just fine. We're going to get into shape. I really want to target shoulders. I'm feeling shoulders are where it's going to be, right? Get the arms going, get the shoulders going, get strength here, build strength here. Traditionally, when I've been working out, I think more about my stomach and my abs, but I think that's going to come. That's going to come anyway. So I think the focus is going to be the shoulders. Anyway, that's what I accomplished today. Went out, got some stuff. Also, did a little bit of a workout, which is nice, right? Anemone, absolute pleasure to see you. Good evening to you. Today we're gonna jump in. Hey Andre, how you doing today? Good to see you. Hope you're all doing well out there in TikTok land too. Today I'm gonna start today with some Ukrainian updates. I think we get away with that because it's the New York Times, right? This is an article from the New York Times called "Russia's Economic Growth Suggests Western Sanctions Are Having a Limited Impact." Look at Dizzy, good to see you. What, Privyet? I have no idea what you're saying, dude, but good to see you nonetheless. The resilience of Russia's economy is helping fuel global growth, according to a new report by the International Monetary Fund, suggesting that efforts by Western nations to weaken Moscow because of its war in Ukraine appear to be faltering. In a report issued on Monday, the IMF predicts that Russian output will expand 0.3% in this year and 2.1% in the next year, defying earlier forecasts of a steep contraction in 2023 amid a raft of Western sanctions. A coordinated plan by the United States and Europe to cap the price of Russian oil exports at $60 a barrel is not expected to substantially curtail its energy revenues. At the current oil price cap of the group of 7, Russia's crude oil export volumes are not expected to be significantly affected, with Russian trade continuing to be redirected from sanctioning to non-sanctioning countries, the IMF said. And this, combined with, the NATO nations are the ones that have been hurt the most with these sanctions. That seems to be the real truth, is that the sanction regime has more or less backfired on the European nations. That the goal from the Americans' perspective is always to keep Germany and Russia apart. That's always the goal, because if Germany and Russia actually manage to come together and form any kind of alliance, then it's completely possible that America can be pushed out of the picture. And so, in my view, that's more or less what this war has all been about from the American perspective, is ensuring that it shores up alliances, ensuring that the NATO alliance maintains its strength, and that America maintains its dominance. And it's hilarious to watch. America is like that catty teenage girl in Mean Girls, who is like completely willing to torch and burn stuff if it means that people have to rely on her. She's like totally willing to absolutely ruin someone's day and absolutely upset an apple cart if it means that everyone has to turn to her. Of course, it's a losing strategy, which is why the West is steadily losing, right? And America is steadily having to turn to more and more drastic and insane solutions. And something I've been reporting on for a long, long time, right, is the West's support of the coup in Ukraine, the coup that occurred in 2014 in Ukraine. And what people always say to me, because if you read, I should actually bring this article up just so I actually have a source in case anyone wants to actually. The West has been training Nazis, just like it trains other terrorist groups throughout the Middle East, right? Right-wing terrorist group and training those groups to overthrow governments is how the United States communicates with the rest of the world and how it does things in the rest of the world. Good to see you, Mason, Marie. Good to see you, Nova Scotia and Adam. Absolute pleasure to see you. Isaac, don't think I've missed you. Good to see all of you out there. Now, I'm kind of sputtering over what I'm saying right here because I got to admit I'm nervous. I'm nervous talking about this, right? People get banned on social media. People get chased off on social media. People get removed from social media platforms for bringing up things that the Ottawa Citizen or the New York Times reports on, for bringing up things and talking about them that, like, hey, we have been training Nazi groups in Ukraine for a while now. And we all know about the Azov Battalion. We all know about these organizations, right? But if you bring them up, you might literally have your platform removed. So much for your free speech, right? All you free speech people who are saying, like, communism never free speech it's free speech. Well, no one's getting removed faster. No one's getting arrested more. No one's getting deplatformed faster than communists and leftists in your society. And it's because they don't want you to know the absolute truth about this. Mason, good to see you, bud. So, and one of the big comments that people will always make is, oh, well, that's just like a small group of Nazis, right? Oh, every society has Nazis. Like, Ukraine isn't all Nazis, right? It's not a Nazi society. Well, here's a great article. Ukraine celebrates Nazi collaborator Stepan Bandera's birthday. Ukraine marked the birthday of Nazi collaborator Stepan Bandera today as a national holiday for the first time. The parliament voted that January 1st would be officially recognized for the leader of the Organization of Ukrainian Nationalists, which fought alongside the Nazis against the Red Army in the Second World War and whose quest for an ethnically pure Ukraine saw it participate in the Holocaust, murdering tens of thousands of Jews and Poles. Though Bandera demanded the destruction of Jews, Poles, Moskali, as he termed the Russians in Ukraine, and Hungarians, and the OUN's program pledged to combat the Jews as a prop of the Muscovite Bolshevik regime, Kiev now states he was an outstanding figure and theorist of the Ukrainian national liberation movement. Schools and universities have been instructed to hold classes on Bandera, while the Ministry of Culture was told to stage exhibitions about him. Commemorative coins and stamps in the fascists' honor have been commissioned. The law of Lviv, where Bandera was born, was declared 2019 a year in his honor, prompting U.S. academic Tarek Yusuf Cyril Amar, who formerly directed the Center for Urban History in the city, to return a civic honor bestowed on him there in protest. I do not need rewards from a city that praises Stepan Bandera, a fascist, he declared. Since 2016, Ukraine has made the anniversary of the death of Simon Petliura, a far-right separatist leader who headed an anti-Bolshevik government in Ukraine during the Russian Civil War, a holiday in his honor, despite his regime having sponsored pogroms that killed around 50,000 Jews. Now, the reason why this is happening in Ukraine is because Zelensky has already banned left-wing parties in Ukraine. That includes the leader of the opposition in Ukraine. So I've been saying it since the beginning of this war, and I'm going to continue saying it until it's actually the truth. We are going to see open Nazi salutes in the parliament. Like, and we are going to see the party that takes control in Ukraine's parliament is going to be an open Nazi party that is going to rule openly. This is what's happening in the society. This is what's happening in Ukraine as it continues its collapse and as it continues its decline. And we here in the West are desperate to cling on to this idea that Putin's an imperialistic madman who's trying desperately to recreate the Soviet Union or recreate some sort of greater Russia or like a Peter the Great style figure or any of these sorts of things. And what they don't want you to ever understand is that NATO and the West were happily funding, on the lead up to the war, were happily funding Nazis within Ukraine in order to begin a war. They began a war in the Donbass region. They were shelling people throughout. You can find a fellow by the name of John Mershamir, right? He's got lots of YouTube videos. He's all over the place. Chris Hedges shares his videos and talks, and they openly talk about this. This is when you listen to people like Chris Hedges and Noam Chomsky talk about quote unquote NATO expansion. This is what they're talking about. The reason why they are not putting it so plainly, right, that there was a coup fueled by Nazis and an Azov battalion that went and started a war in the Donbass is because they know people are getting deplatformed and they've got a lot to lose, right? They've got a lot to lose. Getting removed from these platforms and getting removed from the conversation entirely. Funnily enough, someone like Jimmy Dore is actually reporting fairly openly about this. And you can go to Jimmy Dore's channel and see a lot of information about this. But apparently if I talk about it, right, my channel gets suspended and I get removed from platforms. So I'm very nervous talking about this, but this is what's happening in the world. And we should probably know about it and be aware that we are funding it. Like, that's the thing. And this is the reason why I'm so desperate to try and just get any of this information out into the world and get anybody talking about it, is because we are the ones that can stop it, right? Like, the Russians and the Chinese are just doing what they can to shore up their own borders and defend against our aggression, our obvious aggression. And it is going to require the citizens of the nation to finally say, we don't want to interact with the world in this way. And why should we? Why should we want to be the Nazis on the world stage? That's exactly who we are. That's exactly who we are. And the callous, casual banality by which people will say that I want to overthrow China and I want to go in there and destroy and all this kind of stuff. Like, we have people who are fascists, but if you call them fascists, they cry about it. Right? They get upset, even though what they are saying is, let's go destroy a country we know nothing about. And it's I'm deeply, 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 deeply frustrated at the astounding illiteracy surrounding the issue of the Ukraine war and the Taiwanese war, the upcoming Taiwanese war. Because the truth is that from the Russian and Chinese perspective, these are defensive wars against an obvious aggressor. And that obvious aggressor is the United States. And I don't think that an argument can be made that can be taken seriously that says something else is going on. As soon as you see what's going on, and as soon as you listen to somebody else who isn't the CIA, and as soon as you actually listen to somebody who's got boots on the ground. I remember before he got completely scrubbed from the internet, there was a fellow, oh my God, I'm completely blanking on his name. Maybe somebody in the chat could help me. There was a Texan Marine who went overseas when the coup happened, and he started fighting alongside the Donbass ethnic Russians against the Nazis. And he was uploading videos every week and interviews constantly, right? Fighting against these Ukrainian Nazis who were shelling this region. And when Putin invaded, he was celebrating it, and he was talking about how this is a liberation moment. And of course, he gets completely scrubbed. He gets completely scrubbed off of the internet, and because we can't see information, right? We can't. Russell Bentley, that's his name. Thank you, Andre. I knew somebody was going to know. Russell Bentley, right? This fella is, if you want to talk about a real American hero, right? You want to talk about somebody who understands when to fight and what to fight for. You're talking about a man like Russell Bentley, that he saw what was going on. He saw that there were Nazis being Nazis being integrated into the government in Ukraine, and he thought to himself, I got to go over there and fight back and do what I can. And it was deeply disappointing. Like when the scrub happened, which was removing like all RT sources, and which was a direct attack against leftists in America and American leftists, right? It's and exactly, it's a very serious thing, Content, right? Like Content says, hey guys, we got 3 years, make your peace, because we'll be at war with China by 2025. It seems like that's the trajectory, and it seems as though we here in the West are basically just down for it. Like we're literally just like sitting here saying, yeah, let's just have a war with China, as if that's something that's going to be good for us, right? This is the part about this conversation that drives me crazy, is that we aren't, like, all of this is going to blow back in our faces, and it's going to blow back in our faces in big and massive ways. We are going to pay a heavy and serious price for all of this warmongering. Like, what we are doing is not dicking around in the Middle East anymore, right? We're not bombing defenseless nations anymore. We're not going overseas and massacring civilians in the streets with CIA death squads anymore. The people we're fighting against are not like unarmed peasants who are just like rebellious and rabulous guerrilla fighters anymore. We are trying to pit ourselves up against serious nuclear superpowers who have previously in the past defeated massive armies, some of the best trained, well-equipped armies in the world. The Chinese army, the Chinese exist. China exists today because they defeated Japanese, American, and British imperialists, not and including their own monarchists, in order to seize power for themselves. Like, you think we're just going to roll up on those guys the way that we rolled up on the Iraqis? Right? We can't even take out the Russians. Like, what we are doing is foolishness on the highest possible level. And it is all rooted in this xenophobic, racist position that these people should not have responsibility for their own countries. That we shouldn't be able to actually say, hey, it's fine that there are people who are not white Westerners who are in control of their own territory. It's absolutely been brutal. Absolutely been brutal. I'm doing great, Vince. I gotta tell you, like, personally, I'm doing great. Like, I wish we weren't doing this war thing. It seems so stupid. Like, it's the worship of ignorance, as always, right? We just love being stupid. We love being stupid. We're so happy that we're this dumb as a people. Like, we really, really love it. It's just unbelievable. Yeah. Marine generals in the Pacific are saying it in the open. Yeah, we've reported that. And that's absolutely the case. Like, they're openly calling for war against China. And what, you think China is not going to, like, do anything about that? You think China's just going to be like, oh, that's a normal thing for a general to say? Yeah, it's normal. No, they're gearing up. They're getting ready. Right? They're getting ready. Continent says, I'm black-pilled again tonight. Had to hear a leftist pundit insist that Trump and DeSantis are talking to working class interests as if their anti-war rhetoric is real. Well, I mean, Trump's basically like called for a trans genocide now, right? Like literally, he said just earlier today, he straight out is saying that any doctor who has involved themselves in any kind of trans affirming surgery or any of this kind of stuff will be jailed, right? Like this is it's getting extremely serious, and we got to stop pretending as if the people who are calling for like the eradication of Chinese people are not going to turn around and do the same to those very same people living within our own borders. Like we are absolutely paying heavy costs for what we are doing, and our deep commitment to illiteracy and stupidity, like our commitment to the worship of money, the worship of ourselves, and the worship of stupidity. We are going to pay deeply for it. And if we don't actually like wake up, which I know saying woke these days is like it's like a weird thing, but if we don't actually like attain a level of consciousness and a level of awareness that includes like, oh, there are psychopaths who are trying to destroy us all for their own weird little sycophantic games, then we are absolutely facing 100 years of humiliation here. Our children will live in the mire and the muck, and they will spit on us. They will look at us as demons, and they will be right to do so. It's as simple as that. Anyone follow, good to see you, Adam. Anyone follow Maxime Bernier? I tend to dip in and out of him, but I mean, he's just, far-right libertarian dreck, basically. I troll him now and then. He's claiming he's against so-called Canada sending tanks to Ukraine, but was silent when Harper spent $20 million. Yeah, well, he was an MP. Yeah, it's just petty politics. And the wind, it's sort of funny because, like, the group that seems to actually be the most against these wars is actually like the libertarians. Like they actually are. Like that's what's so funny is that you get like Jimmy Dore, he goes on Fox and he says all of the shit that I'm saying, all of the anti-imperialist shit that I'm saying, Dore says on Fox News. And it's clearly an appeal to this section of the Republican Party that actually believes that these wars are stupid. Like these wars are overwhelmingly stupid, and we should not be doing them. Like we shouldn't be spending a penny on this stuff. Like it's crazy to me. Yeah, Mearsheimer is an interesting man to listen to. Because in my view, he just lays it out. Like he's not dicking around. Like he's straight up. Like he basically said he calls America what America is, just a psychopathic monster, just a Godzilla. Like he calls them Godzilla. They're just a fucking monster on the world stage. That's what they are. They're nothing more, nothing less. And people and the idea that the Chinese and the Russians are not going to try to protect themselves from a giant monster like this is ridiculous. It's just a ridiculous idea. And the idea that we're something other than this is just baby talk. It's just child brain at this point. Like we are going around. If you look, I know you guys don't look at like I know especially some of the people I talk to on TikTok. I know you guys aren't opening up maps. Like I know you're not looking at the world and trying to find out what's going on outside the world. But if you do open up the map and just randomly point and pick a place and go right, the Americans have probably cooed it or blowed it up. Blowed it. How about that? Blown it up. They've probably cooed it or blown it up. Right? We are Nazis on the world stage. It's not even close. And the rest of the world is looking at us being like, we gotta get away from these guys. These guys are psychos. And if we're not careful, it's exactly what's going to happen. That we're going to get cut out and the rest of the world is going to develop without us and we're going to collapse back into feudalism. That's exactly what we're facing. And the idea that we're not, it's just time to stop talking. It's just time to be like, okay, maybe I'm just talking to hear my own voice at this point. Ugh. Yeah, Russell Bentley went over with a red star and his cowboy hat. CPC, LPC, NDP all support Ukraine. Yeah, all sad, all neocon. Yeah, because it's all just petty, ridiculous politics. Like, we don't actually have a leftist movement. We don't actually have a left coalition of any sort. We literally just have these neoliberal shills. That's all we are. We're just and Canada's the worst because we're just like a vassal. Basically just being like, yes, America, whatever you say, America. Oh, the CIA sent a delegation? Whatever the CIA says, absolutely. We shall just uncritically believe everything the Central Intelligence Agency has to say. Absolutely. Oh, great and powerful America. Like, that's basically us. Like, we're not a serious country. Like, we're less serious than, like, California. Like, so we're less serious than, like, states, American states. It's just... We basically just get bowled over and pushed around and then say thank you. Like, it's fucking ridiculous. Yeah, U.S. 2-year plan, ending the world. No kidding. Yeah, people still think the NDP is the anti-war socialist party. Yeah, they just exist just in case Canadians get disgruntled enough with the Liberals and the Conservatives that they want to have another option. That's literally the only reason they exist. Isaac says, it's hard for us in the West to think of us as the evil ones. It's like when you discover your religion is false. Yeah, I think there's something to that, right? Like, I can imagine that it would be difficult for someone, born within the Imperial Empire in the Star Wars universe to actually be like, no, like, what we're doing is actually good. We're trying to spread, and people will say this shit, right? It's actually to their benefit that we're going in there, right? We're spreading a civilization, right? Like, they're just living in huts and shit. Like, we're going to go in there and make things better for them. Like, that's literally how these people talk. And they think that they're serious people, and the reality is that they're just dumb boobs who straight up think that they're the king's shit because they were born into an empire that, like, gave them diamonds and jewels and gold just for existing, which incidentally they stole from the places that they're currently invading. Like, it's fucking ridiculous. I love this meme, this little comic, right? Two men talking in a pub. So what's the big occasion? Just got a big job with the king for 1,000 gold coins. I'm going to teach his horse to speak within 10 years. The other fellow says, are you insane? That's impossible. He's going to cut your head off. The other guy says, well, who cares? In 10 years I may die, the king may die, the horse may die. Cheers. This is essentially the Elon Musk strategy. We're going to get to Mars. I'm going to make electric cars that don't explode. We're going to make an underground tunnel system, right? And then by the time we all find out that he's one of the most efficient, effective grifters in American history, right? It won't matter. He'll be dead, right? By the time we all piece together as a people that, oh, these guys are grifters. Like, they're just grifters. They come in with big promises that they'll never deliver on. And anyone with a lick of sense will look at it and be like, yeah, we're not getting to Mars. Well, you think we're going to terraform Mars? You think we're going to terraform Mars while we de-terraform our own country, our own planet? Like, come the fuck on. Get the fuck out of here. And yet, there he is. And he's on the cover of magazines, and he's in Marvel movies. He's the real Tony Stark. What a super fucking genius this dope is. Right? Yeah, and it's just proof that the only thing we value as a people, the only thing that we value as a people is grifting. If you are an effective grifter, if you are an effective salesman, then you're going to be a billionaire. You're going to make billions of dollars. You're going to be the best in the society. Because, like, when Peterson says, like, the real thing, the determinant of success is actually competence. Well, and then he asks, well, competence at what? Right? Turns out that it's competence at grifting. And that's all these guys are. Like, that's all these far-right pundits are. That's all Elon Musk and Bill Gates and Bezos and all these guys are. Is that they're grifters. Like, take a look at who we're electing to be the fucking president of the United States. It's grifters. To an individual. Like, we love them. We love grifters. We're so happy to be a grifter. And so if you just sell out your moral conscience, if you just forget that the whole idea about living in a society is to give a shit about one another and actually make collective ideas to build up the society collectively, not just for the people who exist now, but the next iteration and the next iteration after that, right? If you just forget about all of that and you just say, oh, I'm just going to take this dagger and start stabbing people and stealing their money and just flush your morality down the drain, then you're a billionaire, kid. You're going to make it real far. Right? And if you're a psychopath, then that means they're going to send you to a place where you get to kill people and then they'll give you medals for it and maybe make a movie. Right? Like they did for that American Sniper. Right? What a fucking serial killer that guy was. If that guy had been born 50 years ago, we'd be making Netflix specials about him. He'd be like a Dahmer, right? Or a Ted Bundy or something. But no, they just recruit these guys and get them to the military and they just murder children in the streets and we're like, congratulations, you're an American hero. Right? That's what we're doing. Grinning, good to see you, bud. The reason that the 4-star general said that we would be at war with China by 2025 is because we think that China will be stronger than the U.S. militarily by then. It's sort of a last chance. Yeah, wouldn't want to be like, oh wow, good for another nation for being strong and powerful. We should trade with them, and we should actually try to like build relations with them, right? We should actually listen to what they have to say. and maybe stop acting like total crazed lunatics. How's that for an idea? But we're too far gone, right? We're too far gone. If we don't go to war with China, we'll stay in Ukraine until we find a more profitable war. Yeah. RBN gives the far-right Republicans way too much credit, to a downright foolish extent, to the point that I'd rather tell him the case for DeSantis. Are we talking about, when you guys say RBN, is that Russell Bentley that you guys are talking about? Yeah, don't get me wrong, dude. Me and Russell Bentley have disagreements on political views, but I mean, you can't deny I'll never spit in his face. Put it that way, right? I'll never spit in his face. He and I are going to disagree on some political things, but like he's earned his opinions. He's earned them. Marcus, still here. Weren't you going to go eat something, Marcus? Coming on back. I don't think RBN is truly pro-GOP. They know who they are. If you say so, I don't find giving far-right reactionaries the rub as clever. It ain't. No, certainly not. Good to see you, Danarchist. I think pointing out the Democrats, who are supposed to be on the left, are being out-lefted by far-right reactionaries is good. Yeah. That's how embarrassing the Democrats are. That they can be out-lefted by literally far-right reactionaries, right? People who don't have a political ideology, like they really don't know that much about the society they live in. It's why like the Nazbols and the people who are like the mega communists and all this are being taken seriously. Because these people don't actually have a political position or a political ideology, right? And a lot of them are literally just like, Jesus Christ will come back and sort all this out. We just got to be good Christians and fight the good fight. Make sure that we keep the white race pure, right? Like that kind of fucking crazy nonsense and garbage. Like we're an absolute just like trash-brained society, and so a lot of these trash-brained people who don't have a political ideology, they're just like outcroppings of their society. They're just like people who are like, I don't think I care for what's going on here in today's world. And I'm being told it's these wokers, and they got their blue hair, and they're saying all this strange stuff, and they're telling me that I can't say I gotta use a different word when I'm telling a different person the thing. It's all very weird and strange to me. I don't know about any of this, but you know what I really don't care for? I don't care that my young men and women are going overseas and dying in wars for some rich man. I don't care for that whatsoever. So you're ended up with like a weird hodgepodge of nonsense with these guys, because it is a weird, because they're a weird hodgepodge of nonsense. That's the thing that's really beautiful about it. Really, you got a lot of people who are standing up and be like, well, something's going wrong, and we got to do something for it here in America. We got to take America back and make America great again, because something's going wrong. I don't know what, but something's going wrong, right? Like that's why I'll say it, and I'll defend it to the end. These far right libertarian types are further along than conservatives and liberals. If you're still standing around calling yourself a liberal and conservative, you're at the bottom of the conversation as far as I'm concerned. Like it's literally like liberal, conservative, Nazi. Like this is where we are. So there's that block, and then right above them are libertarians. Because at least the libertarians are saying, yeah, this isn't working. What, you see all this poverty? Look at the poverty that definitely exists. These homeless people are a problem, right? And of course their solutions are something like, well, these homeless people are a problem. Must be all the mental illness. It's a mental illness crisis. Yeah, certainly not just like we've created a homelessness crisis by essentially robbing the populace, right? Certainly nothing like that. But at least they're acknowledging that the problem exists. Like, while the liberals and the conservatives are just like, you know, we gotta really make sure that when we're dropping bombs in Afghanistan that those planes have pride flags on them. That's what we gotta do. No, we shouldn't be putting pride flags on the side of the bombers that we're dropping on children. No, absolutely we should be pride flags. Equality and inclusivity is important. The inclusivity is we gotta do. Like, that's the conversation these idiots are having. Marcus says, I'm consistently anti-war. That isn't on your own borders, yeah, but it's hard to be not called a hypocrite because I served in Afghanistan when I was 17. Marcus, bud, I don't think that makes you a hypocrite at all, right? Especially as a teenager, right? Like, I feel like there's a big system. There's a big system in place, and this is something, I've said this before and been called that it's condescending to say, but I don't mean it to be condescending, because I think it's absolutely the case that there's a gigantic media and military industrial complex that is designed to sucker people. It's designed to draw people in and deceive people, and there's no shame whatsoever to being drawn in and suckered by it. You shouldn't feel ashamed of it. You shouldn't feel bad by it. You should be angry about it, obviously, but you shouldn't think to yourself, oh, what a me problem. What a me thing that happened. Oh, it's such, I can't believe that I fell for that kind of thing. Of course you did. How could you help it? How could you think otherwise? You were a teenager. Think of the dumb shit that you thought when you were a teenager. You're a teenage boy. And here's this billion-dollar multinational corporate entity jamming into your face the idea that, well, if you enlist, son, if you get out there and enlist, you're going to be a strong American citizen. We're going to make sure we pay for your education. When you get out and you get out in service, you get back into civilian life, the people of America are going to respect you for you and your service. And everything's going to be great and peachy and roses for you. We'll set you up and there'll be a nice pension and all this kind of crazy stuff. And then you get home and it's all, fuck you, get wrecked, right? Like, it's a sucker system. It's a grifting system. And there's no shit. And you're not a hypocrite for being taken in by it. Like, fuck these guys. Ugh. Isaac just casually saying more than 53 coups in Latin America. Yeah, don't forget that. Don't forget that. Those don't exist, though. Those don't exist. Yeah, Canadians, we say sorry and thank you to the United States. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, so sorry. The Canadian position really is, at least they're not bombing us. That's just the bottom line on it, right? Dora's buddies are trying to get Trump reelected, yeah, or at least the GOP. I think that's true. Like, for sure, that, like, I do think that in some capacity Dora is something of a useful idiot to them. Like, I think that that's definitely true. And they are playing that angle in order to try to draw in a specific type of person. Like, this is what the MAGA communist thing is all about, right? Well, why don't we appeal to the far left and draw them in and get them to vote GOP? Like, why not make this try? Like, why not do this, right? So but it doesn't change the fact that what he's saying is true. If Trump increases war and bombings after Obama, he sent $1 billion plus a million. Yeah, how is he anti-war when his friends aren't? Yeah. I mean, I really do just think Dora is just happy to go wherever he can go to say the thing that he's saying. Like, you're getting into a meta kind of critic or a meta kind of thinking that I don't think Dora does. Like really, I don't think Dora does the type of meta critical thinking that you are doing of him. I think that he really is just like, this is the truth, I'm going to tell the truth, and you want me to come here and tell the truth? You goddamn right. You're goddamn right. Yeah, dude. The 53 coups in Latin America, and we're all just like, it's socialism. You think socialism is good? You think communism is good? Well, then Latin America is so poor, though. Yeah, dude. The 53 coups, like literal bombing campaigns, just like the Pinochet era. Grinning says Mars would only be terraformed until a constant profit is possible. At that point, all investment in human thriving would cease. Yeah, exactly. Base, good to see you. JP has competence at abusing hard narcotics. Yeah, very good. It's an important skill. It's important. You got to fit in, right? You got to fit in. Adam says, for anyone who hasn't seen that Trump's anti-trans speech, please watch and share. Yeah, it is absolutely terrifying. And what DeSantis said yesterday wasn't far off either. Yep. Like, this is what I'm talking about. This is why a channel like this should exist. To say, like, we are plummeting into fascism. We are plummeting into fascism. And the idea that we're not going to, the idea that we're going to like pull up on it, probably not. Like probably not. And like the thought that like we'll never do that. Like that won't actually happen. Yeah, it absolutely will. Like it absolutely will. It's just, we have done this before, right? We as Americans and Canadians have done this before. We can absolutely do it again. Vijay Prashad calls them mediocre people. This is conservatives and liberals. Also, how dare we wag our finger at anyone? Yeah, it's like Isaac said, over 53 coups in Latin America, yet we wag our finger at them. Yep, absolutely. Like, absolutely. And you can see, like, figures do this all the time, right? That, like, this is what made Sam Harris such an unrepentant Islamophobe, right? Is literally we can go overseas and bomb them and destroy their country and do all that kind of stuff. But if they fight back, then they're, you know, the racists. They're the problem, right? It's such a slimy, underhanded, evil position to take. We should judge the quality of these people based on how they react to war, instead of like, hey, how about the fact that we're inflicting them with that war? RBN, Revolutionary Blackout Network. Fantastic. Yeah, we used to have serial killers, but now they join the army. Yeah, exactly. Marcus says, I don't know about the balanced approach towards soldiers. They're kids more often than psychopathic stormtroopers of your imagination. Yeah, the propaganda machine takes advantage of poor teenagers. You're absolutely right, Marcus. You are right about that. Like, I know I just went on like a big like serial killers joining the army kind of thing, but that's only a piece of it. Like, I think that does happen. Like, for real. Like, I think the CIA, when they find out that someone is like a serial killer type psychopath, is like, oh, recruit him. I absolutely think that happens. But what also happens, because it's a big net, you know, a lot of shit to do, a lot of positions to, is that you've got poor teenagers in poor neighborhoods who don't have anything else going on, not a lot of prospects, and you just wind them up. Like you get games like Call of Duty. You get things like why do you think our society's media is so militarized? You get like Top Gun, right? Like and you get these video games that are all about going over to war and fighting in wars and all this and all this, and creating like a mythical, delusional version of what war is actually going to look like and what it's actually going to be like. And it isn't until you're actually over there and you've already hard committed to doing a tour and being part of this machine that you start to piece together that like this isn't what it was pitched. And then you get home and all of the promises they made you end up being a bunch of bullshit, and you just get totally abandoned. Like it's vicious and cruel at the highest level. And the only way they can sustain, like, enlistment, and this is the thing, is that it's completely self-destructive. Enlistment is down, right? This idea that the Americans are going to wage some large-scale war and large-scale conflict where they're going to win against the Russians or the Chinese, while simultaneously no one's enlisting in their psychopath army, like, it's bonkers. It's absolutely bonkers. And incidentally, it's one of the reasons why empires collapse, because eventually people just stop participating in this. They literally are just like, oh, like everything you say is bullshit. The wars you send us to are horrible. And for reasons that are ungodly and demonic. And then we come home and you abandon us to the streets. Like, and we're seeing it like right in front of our eyes. Like you gotta be like a poor teenager who doesn't know what's going on to sort of see that that's to not really get that that's the case. And if you're living in a society where no one's like everyone's keeping it mum, that's a big thing. And I think that happens is that there isn't people like me in the society. Like I'm not a teacher. They would never let me teach, right? And if I had a kid coming up to me saying like I'm going to join the military, I'd be like, son, you're an Imperial Stormtrooper. Like, you're going to go do Imperial Stormtrooper shit. Luke Skywalker would be disappointed in you. Right? That should be the slogan, right? Don't join the military. Luke Skywalker would be disappointed in you. I gotta tighten that up. But that's the idea. But there's none of that. That doesn't exist, right? Because if a teacher or someone in a position of authority actually did say that, they would be fired and they would be chased out of their position. So they can't. They just gotta watch these kids march off to war for fucking nothing. Well, not nothing, for the wealth of the billionaire class. RBN leaders contend to promote a race-first politics. That's what I disagree with. Capitalism uses race as a wedge. Yeah, it's not primary. Yeah. I've gotten into arguments with Arami Osai Frimpong about his pro-capitalist race-first approach. He doesn't respond after a while. Yeah, like, sorry, you lost me at pro-capitalist. Like you lost me at pro-capitalist. So you think that people should have owners? Like that's what capitalism is. That you think there should be owners. You think that people should sell themselves into a position of ownership. Like this is the reason why like capitalists cannot actually have a serious debate about the Communist Manifesto. Because to debate the Communist Manifesto and to actually take what it says seriously and to try to take a counter position is to just acknowledge that, yes, people should be owned, that there should be an ownership class, and everyone else should rent themselves to that ownership class. I think that that's good. And as soon as you say this out loud, it's like, oh, so it's like a pro-slavery argument. And you ultimately, the only way to defend the position is to just continue doing pro-slavery bullshit, right? Which we've all seen before. Yeah, look at what we do to First Nations people. No shit. Yep. Everyone loves a soldier till they come home and stop fighting. Yeah. Yeah, to defeat racism, we have to defeat capitalism. Yeah. Compton says, I have a neutral outlook towards colored capital and nationalist separatists who are functionally anti-colonial. I think they have justified reason for their view. Yeah, that there is something about that. Like, I suspect that it's difficult to argue against someone's, like, what someone is experiencing in front of their eyes, right? Europeans didn't develop capitalism because they hated brown people. They fomented hate against brown people so they could profit from them. One problem springs out of another. I think that's exactly right. And you can see that because the idea of, like, white people and black people, right, that didn't really exist until capitalism really comes along and takes it out. But before then, it was just like, you know, all the European nations had kind of a mutual hatred of one another because everything was based on nationalism. But then that sort of falls apart a little bit because there's an economic system that comes in. And what matters more than the national system is who has the money, right? And so how do you get people to turn against one another? Well, that person has a different skin color than you, and therefore... Isaac says the politicians' children go to West Point where they can move on their careers, but our children are used cannon fodder. Yeah, absolutely. You're doing logic leaps on Dore, says Adam. You say the GOP is manipulating Dore, reaching out to the far left. But what's Dore's reason for reaching out to the far right? Not just once, but consistently? Because he wants people to listen to him. That's all. He wants viewers. Like I think that's pretty straightforward. Oh, here's a bunch of people who want to listen to what I have to say. Like, and I don't think he's trying to manipulate anybody to that. Like, I think the things that Dore says are true. Like, that's for the most. Like, I'm yet to see somebody present me something that says this guy's a fraud. Especially when he's like saying, like, he's laying out some of the most serious shit I've seen about, like, the Ukraine war, right, the Taiwan war. Right? Like, I think that his... Like, I think Fox uses him to attempt to delegitimize themselves. I don't think that goes the other way around. Yep. In order to justify slavery, they had to dehumanize the enslaved. Absolutely. So even if we solve the problem of racism 100%, we still have the capitalist tendency to create an underclass. There will always be an underclass, even if it's completely racially representative. Yeah, exactly. Marcus, kind of makes me nauseous thinking about all the smiles and handshakes you get beforehand. Them knowing full well the meat grinder that awaited all their children they were processing. Yeah, dude. Got you, buddy. I know what's about to happen, so we're gonna cut that off right at the front. Right at the front, we're gonna cut that right off. You don't need to get into that big snorty thing, dude. It sucks when you get into that big snorty thing, dude. Milo likes to get all snorty. I'll let you guys hear on TikTok. You can see him really good. Look at that. Isn't he a beautiful little boy? My beautiful little boy. Milo, 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 Milo. To those who are asking, like, I'm actually glancing over here. Would you still be communism if Polyev was leader? Would you still be for communism if Polyev was leader? Yes. Justin Trudeau is not a communist. And certainly not Polyev. Like, liberals and conservatives are losers. Like, straight up, just losers. They're essentially begging as hard as possible for someone to own them and be happy about it. And are you an ML or do you have an opinion on identifying as different leftist sects? Milo is a socialist. Thank you very much, sir. I don't think we have the convenience to do like the leftist infighting. Like, I think that we as leftists really need to come together and basically say we've got an enormous problem in front of us, and if we're gonna get stuck on weird little theories and ideas, then we're gonna destroy ourselves. Right? Very, very, very straightforwardly. Like, I call myself a communist because when I look at the Communist Manifesto and I read the works of Marx, I think to myself, this is accurate. And that's about as far as it goes. Yeah, it requires a whole new framework of understanding, dismantling capitalism and imperialism. Incidentally, guys, like if you want to interact with me more, right? YouTube is the way to do it. It's in the description, right? It's as simple as that. Like I tend not to pay that much attention to what happens on TikTok because, frankly, TikTok is full of Nazis, if you ask me. So it's just like real weird shit happens on TikTok, dude. Grinning says the end point of race-first politics is to have multicolored feet in the boot, and that's on the neck of the world's working class. It's not a future I really desire because there's no change whatsoever. Yeah, diverse oligarchy is a real losing goal. Yeah, we don't need more black billionaires. No, we're not advocating for that. One step at a time. I used to live in South Central LA between 1980 and 84, and there were many Vietnam veterans living in the street, and they are now dead. Yep. That's the truth, man. Like, that's the truth. Imagine actually going and fighting a war and then ending up homeless. Like for real. Like, imagine that's your reality. Imagine that's your reality. Marcus says, I think the real psychopaths are defense contractors. They know their profits depend on human blood to be shed and are incentivized to lobby to support foreign wars. They could participate in any other sector of the economy, but they choose that, and it's fucked. Yeah, so Tony Stark, right? Like, that's who Tony Stark is, right? A defense contractor. Milo, buddy. Leave it alone, okay? You're not going to get more food. I think we should return Turtle Island to indigenous people, yeah. I think we should just destroy the concept of bourgeoisie ownership entirely. Yeah, that's the whole idea. Like, that's the whole idea. Let's just destroy the billionaire class. Right? Simple as that. Today, 500k workers in the UK will be going on strike. Right? We've got Britain hit by the biggest strike in more than a decade, with schools shut and rail networks disrupted. Vincent Thomas comes in to say, it's getting so hard to get myself to go to work. Tell me about it, Vincent. Like, tell me about it. I think one of the things, like, I take a lot of flack from, like, the conservatives and the liberals and the fascists in the conversation, right? Because you're not applying yourself to get out there, work the hard job and do that kind of stuff. It's like, dude, do you have any idea how difficult this actually is, like, psychically? Do you have any idea how much psychic damage we're all taking doing this kind of shit? Right? I need my job to be brain dead. I need my job to be, like, low level. I don't need to be, like, stressing at my work at all, right? At all. 0%. Like, I need either this to start paying out, or which is good opportunity to say like, share, subscribe, maybe think about donating, right? $1, right? We are at the beginning of the month. We all just paid rent. I know. So do what you can. Love you all. But but like we're all taking this enormous psychological damage, right? Knowing that we're living in a universe and in a world that is actually destroying itself on purpose for nothing, right? Like, for real, we've got the Hamburg Climate's Future Outlook, the plausibility of a 1.5 Celsius limit to global warming, social drivers and physical processes. Their conclusion is straight up like, yeah, we're not going to do it. So we just need to like try to do our best to deal with the fallout from our not actually sustaining the system in the first place. Like what we have done is that we have been born into a beautiful system that's regenerative, that supports us and believes in us. Pretty unlikely Oak and his Weens are going to get an in here, bud. You can come on over to YouTube if you want to ask a question. We'll vet you, see if you're worth talking to. The Milo dude. Sorry guys, 1 second. My dog is just whining over nothing. Milo, bud. No more. No more, buddy. You're driving me crazy, okay? No more. Ugh. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to do the show, and it's like... Yeah, like, exactly. I don't know what I'm working for, surviving towards anymore. I'm just fighting for the sake of it at this point. Can I tell you exactly what it is that I try and do? This is exactly what I try and do. I try and make it so that every single interaction I have with everybody who comes into my shop is as pleasant as possible. So that when they leave my aura, my space, right? When they leave where I am, somehow they feel like their life has improved. That's it. That's all I'm trying to do the whole time, right? They come in, and from the beginning of their interaction with me to the end, I want what happens to be completely pleasant. I don't want them to cause me any problems, and I want them to leave thinking, wow, what a unique, interesting, stylish, happy, lovely little moment I just had, and look at me, I've got a little snack. Like, that's the goal. Because that way I get to create for myself a little reprieve. I treat my work like a break. That's what I do. That this is my real work. This is where I take the most damage. This is where I dig in my heels. This is where I try to get out and fight back the best that I possibly can. And try to gather people and make people realize that we're not alone and we shouldn't be ashamed by these gaslighting frauds. That people like Kevin O'Leary, people like Jordan Peterson, Ben Shapiro, these are gaslighting frauds who want you to feel bad about your place in the world, and you shouldn't. That what you should do is you should treat this capitalist shithole as the vacation, and you should treat this as the work. That's what I've done. And that's what I try and I strive to do. That this is the real job. This is what really matters. And that when you go out there, you do the barest of minimum for these capitalists. You do the lowest possible level for them, because they are frauds, gaslighters, pedophiles, and murderers. You do as little as possible, and anytime you interact with anybody, you try and make it so that their life is better somehow. That's it. That's it. And if you do that, then you're going to have a better time. You're going to have a better life. Simply because you're not funneling all your energy into a lost cause. You're funneling into the person in front of you. And that person who's in front of you is going through exactly the same shit you are. And the best thing that you can do for that person is make their life a little bit better. And that's the truth. And I completely understand it, Vincent. Like, I completely understand it. That like, what are we all going to work for? Like, what are we going to work for? Like, what are we doing? Right? Like, we're ascending this hierarchy of competence. And what's the competence? What do you got to be competent at? Turns out that you got to be competent at grifting or just straight up a psycho murderer. And then you get to ascend the hierarchy, right? Well, if you're unwilling to do that, and if you want to be a good person who doesn't murder people or steal from people, well, then you can get fucked and go work at a cafe or something. Very simple, straightforward shit. Broccoli cheddar rice. Hey, Jonathan, what's your go-to source piece of evidence to show a non-believer the reality of human-induced climate change? Oh, yeah, dude. Broccoli cheddar rice, always a pleasure to see you. Dude, NASA.com. Simple. Simple, easy, straightforward NASA. Just if they're not going to listen to the people who put men on the moon, if they're not going to listen to the scientists they pay in order to actually do this and actually be like, yeah, this is real, this is a thing. If they're not going to listen to NASA, then you just got to disconnect from them. And you got to let them know that that's the case. That like, oh, you're just not going to believe anything, right? Like, you're a flat earther. That's where you are. You're just flat earth. End of the conversation. Unserious person. If they're not going to listen to NASA, then I don't think there is anything they're going to listen to. And then okay, so let's say they pull this card though, because I've seen this card. Well, where they'll go, oh well, NASA is, that's part of the United States government. I trust the government. I don't trust blah blah blah, that kind of stuff. Okay, how about the World Bank? How about the World Health Organization? How about the Chinese government, the Russian government? Like, it's all right in front of your face. Nobody denies this shit anymore. There is no country out there that is pretending like this is not happening, because every country understands how badly they're going to get fucked over by it. And so they know that they've at least got to brace for impact. And you can't brace for impact and simultaneously pretend like the thing isn't happening. Like, the people who are standing up at this stage in the game and pretending like climate change aren't happening are either desperately uninformed, like so uninformed that you just got to be like, bro, what are you watching? Like, what are you watching? You got to turn that shit off. You got to turn that off, dude. Whatever it is you're watching. I don't even care what it is. Like, find out what they're watching and be like, turn that off. Bye-bye with that. Find something new. So they're so desperately uninformed. Or they're literally a Nazi. Like, and I think there is people out there who are like, I can't wait for this climate apocalypse to happen so I can just murder babies and get away with it and everything will be fine. Right? Oh, but NASA, dude. Like, I mean, I can't think of a better source. Like Matthew Boucher, Boucher? I bet it's Boucher. Matthew, good to see you, bud. Anyone else see that Always Sunny episode where Charlie works for Frank's company and keeps asking, what do we do? Like, what do we make? I haven't really done big deep dives on There's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I feel like I should. I feel like I'm past time, right? Yeah, Boucher. Got it, bud. Got it. And, yeah, apparently Lake Superior is only 8% ice this year. Super disturbing, of course. Like, of course it's super disturbing. It's gonna get fucking weird, guys. Like, weird, strange, unusual, crazy, dumb fuck shit is gonna happen. And there's still gonna be dumb, boomer-brained people walking around being like, oh, climate change is the natural cycles and everything's done normal, fine, and these people need to be openly ridiculed. Openly ridiculed. It's all that we've got left. Like I hate to say it, and I really hate to break it down. I really hate to put it this way. All we have left for the climate change deniers is open ridicule. They will not listen to reason. They do not care about facts. They do not care about evidence. They do not care about their own children. All we have left as a tool to deal with these people is open ridicule. These people should be represented in the media as foolish. They should be made fun of. We should insult them to their faces, call them stupid, illiterate. And if they say, that's rude, you're trying to destroy the fucking planet, you dumb moron. That's all we've got left. They're not going to listen to anything else. Because everything else is right in front of them. If they're not going to listen to NASA, if they're not going to listen to the World Health Organization, the World Bank, the United States government, the Canadian government, the Chinese government, the Russian government, the Indian government, the EU, the African nations, South America, if they're not going to listen to the United Nations, if they're not going to listen to every organization that exists on the planet that has any credibility, Oxford, Harvard, Princeton, if they're not going to listen to every organization that exists on the planet because I saw a guy on YouTube that said a thing, flush them down the drain. Get them out of your life. Cut them off. Cut them off. Bye-bye. Goodbye. You fucking idiot. You fraudulent moron. Get out. Oh, these people are not your friends. And if these are the people you're keeping around in your life, you do not need them. Because if they're acting this way about an issue that's this obvious right in front of your face, then they're never going to help you. They're never going to help you. That when it comes to actually get even the most mundane, lowest possible level of help from these people, they're going to try to talk you out of it. They're going to try to talk you out of something. And if you actually go, yeah, the guy who thinks climate change isn't real has a point, then you're the fucking dummy. Get rid of these frauds, flush them down the drain, and when they say, like, hey, why aren't we talking? Like, why? You say, because you fucking are an idiot. Because you deny the existence of climate change, and I'm not keeping people like that in my life. Period. Like, if I knew a guy that was saying, yeah, we should go round up the Jews, bye. I don't need you in my life. Yeah, I don't think climate change is real. Bye. I don't need you in my life. Like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? Jesus. Jesus. I say in the name of Jesus Christ. Ugh. Sorry. I just felt like I got a little, like, evangelical there. Oh. Something globalists. Thank you, Lincoln to Z. Boiling it down. Something globalists. Grinning says, I remember times growing up that people walked across Lake Erie in the winter, yet crazy stuff. Who knew that wouldn't ever happen again, for sure. Generation Y me, weather around here has been so mild recently, it's starting to get cold now. Every time I want to complain about the cold, I remind myself that this is actually normal temperatures. Yeah, dude, and like... now they're talking about how like the global ocean current system is going to shift. Like it's like there are some people who think it's going to actually literally flip. There are some people who think it's just going to redirect in a way. Like it's going to be fucking crazy. We are going to get completely blindsided by this dumb bullshit that comes our way. Yeah, I remember when the Midwest had 4 actual seasons. Lit check. I like that name, bud. And you got a nice purple icon. Very good. I think this is your first comment. I hope it's beautiful. You basically have to be a for real psychiatrist with this high-ass charisma stat to use any other strategy. I don't know what that's in reference to, bud, but I bet it's true. You say, I have a sister that is rather inauthentic zealot, but I keep her around so I can keep in touch with my nieces and nephews. Have any relationships like that? Ugh. That's a tough one, dude. Like, that is a tough one. Like... everybody has some kind of familial strife. It's the truth. Like, everybody has some kind of familial strife, and it's usually just because they've made some kind of decision that you're like, that looks like bullshit to me, but they've committed to it. Like, they've just committed to their dumb bullshit, and you're just like, okay, like, I don't want to be a part of your dumb bullshit. Like, I just don't want to be a part of that dumb bullshit anymore. But I still love you. I still think you're a good person. I just think that you are doing some dumb bullshit that I'm not going to participate in. Everybody's got that. Like, everybody's got that. And so you just do your best. You just do your best. Family's family, right? It's tough. First comment was in reference to need to shame conservative fuckheads. Yeah, any other social strategy is so difficult. Well, it's beyond difficult at this point, lit chat. Like, it's beyond difficult. Like, it has to be described as intentional. It has to be described as intentional at this point. That it's so obviously happening. It's so overwhelmingly the truth. Like, the facts are in. And honestly, like, if it's your own family, like if it's the people who are around you, like people who you can't really separate from, I do think that you just have to start saying, like, look, bud, if you're not, and you could say it exactly like this. Clip this, play this for them. And I'll say it to them for you if you can't find the words or the energy. It is as simple as this, okay? If you think that climate change isn't real, then I can't take anything else you say seriously. I can't take your advice seriously. I can't take your opinion seriously. I can't take your tastes in music seriously. I can't take your fashion style seriously. If you do not think that climate change is real and is happening, then you are an illegitimate person. I cannot take you seriously. Please change your mind. If only so that when you say, hey, I really like that movie, I won't go, I don't give a fuck what you think, climate change denying loser. Change your mind. Now's the time. Like, and if that doesn't work, then nothing will. Like, these people have to begin understanding that they are delegitimizing themselves in the eyes of their peers and their children. And if they don't realize that, if they don't take that seriously, then there's nothing that they will. There's just nothing that they will. Yeah. Nobody hates Christians like slightly different Christians. Yeah. Well, you want a blue Bible? The Bible's supposed to be in black. Everybody knows that. I can't be working with people who think the Bible should be blue. I'm going to go over here and we'll be the Seventh-day Adventists instead of the Sixth. Vincent says, I spent 2 summers in the Tetons and have seen Lake Jackson drop dozens of feet. Oh, dude, like, take a look at what's going on in the river systems in the United States. Like, the Colorado River. It's drying up. Right? Like we're seeing river after river after river just drying up. Like it's totally fucked. We're totally fucked. We are going to have wars over water. Like that is for sure going to happen. It's undeniable at this point. When the United States begins to break up and balkanize, right? When the militarization of its society begins to fail and fall back on itself, people are going to fight over river systems. For sure they are. Like that shit's coming. Christianity adopted a ton of pagan practices, absolutely. That was sort of its strategy, right? It moved into an area, and it would be like, so you had like, I think my favorite one is George the Dragon Slayer. They moved into an area, and there was this group of people who were like, here's our story of George the Dragon Slayer. And the Catholic Church went, you mean Saint George the Dragon Slayer? And then suddenly they just made this guy a saint, and he was just like, yeah, he went around slaying dragons, like the Saint George the Dragon Slayer. I love it. Like they just took the story, put an ST dot in front of it, and we're just like, yeah, cool, this is a Catholic story now. Did it. Marcus says, my only familial strife is that family and friends don't even leave their house or prioritize interactions in person anymore. Seems to be a trend since COVID. Yeah, I think there's something real about that, man. Like, there's an online trend that I've noticed of go outside, touch grass. Lots of people will say that kind of stuff. Touch grass. You got a lot of touch grass people, right? And it's usually used as a pejorative against like people like myself. Right? I get told touch grass. I'm sure that if I look over here, right here, oh, hey, Ronnie McNutt Gaming. Yeah, there we go. Chronically Online. Yeah. We got those. Smoke grass. Thank you, sir. Smoke grass. So 2 people simultaneously said smoke grass. Congratulations, TikTok. The hive mind worked. You did it. Worth pointing out, guys, I got a YouTube channel. Come on over. Right? This is where the serious conversation is happening. Like this is all... This is all just, yeah, here it comes. The anti-communist stuff. The Ronnie guys. Absolutely. Absolutely. Sorry, Milo, dude. I took you down before the stream. You gotta wait. You gotta wait, my man. Oh. Is it an actual denomination or just a Christian-esque belief system this person made up? But my point is that, like, yeah, John, touch grace. This is maidenless behavior. I downloaded Dark Souls 1 again, and I'm going to do a run of Dark Souls 1, because the last time I played Dark Souls 1, I got the first bell and was like, that's good enough. But now I think I'm going to go get that second bell. I think I'm happy. Milo doesn't need puppy pads. Milo doesn't need puppy pads. Milo just wants all the attention. That's what Milo's all about. Milo's like, Jonathan, you are paying attention to something other than me, your obvious and cool little dog. And why are you paying attention to anything other than me, your obvious cool little dog? I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're saying to the world. I don't understand any of that. So you should take me down because that means you'll be paying attention to me. Milo, the reason you exist. He can hold it. Like, he can hold it. Like, I literally took him down 2 hours ago, dude. He doesn't need to go down again. Litcheck says, I remember in debate there was a go-to action to the suggestion that there'd be a resource water wars. We just said it had never happened despite more dire historical moments. Yeah. Like, it's difficult to imagine water wars because people don't want to actually admit that it's possible the United States balkanizes. Like, that's something that I think people are really... like, it doesn't really enter the conversation in a serious way, and people aren't really being serious about it, although it's completely possible. And I actually make the argument that it's utterly likely that the most likely outcome is actually balkanization. And the balkanization of the United States follows the pattern of the collapse of empires throughout human history. That like, when it's slightly different for the British because their empire was very naval based and very like across the seas. But you think about like India didn't stay a British colony, right? Like there was huge independence movements that happened where people separated from the British colonies. The collapse of the Roman Empire is the one that's easy to point to. You just have a contraction of the empire back into sort of the dark heart of it, and places just begin to declare independence and just say, we're going to go out alone. And it really is as simple as, why am I paying taxes to a government that's giving me nothing? That's it. It's as simple as that. And so this once the system begins to balkanize, once states begin to break off, there's going to be like a cascading effect to it. And then you have like, because rivers don't give a shit about your fake borders, right? So who owns the river? Like, who owns the Mississippi River? Who owns the Colorado River? The Colorado River is a better one to use because that crosses a lot of state borders, right? So who owns it? So if Colorado starts siphoning off the water or builds a dam or does something that fucks over the state over, well, who owns it, right? So I think there's going to be wars over it, for sure. For sure. Yeah, dude, Southwest is going to peace out for real. I mean, the question is just who's going to go first. And my money is actually on California. My money's actually on California. Santora, with the big questions. If you are playing Dark Souls 1, what system? Because you need help. I have it. I've beat it New Game Plus. I'm playing it on PC. And no, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to do it straight. It's fine, dude. Like, I feel like now I've beaten Elden Ring twice. I beat Elden Ring, and so it's like, I feel like I should be okay now. You know, going back and playing the Dark Souls. And then I feel like I've actually gotten a gift. I feel like the universe has given me a gift now. Now that I beat Elden Ring, it's like, and I look around and everybody's like, oh, Elden Ring is actually like the hardest of all of them. Or lots of people say that Elden Ring is one of the harder ones. And I'm like, oh, then I feel like that opens up a whole universe for me. That I should go back and play Dark Souls 1, 2, 3, Bloodborne, Sekiro, right? That there's all of these brilliant games that are just like right in front of my hands that I could just like have in my hand that I've just been avoiding because when I played the first Dark Souls, I wanted to kill myself. I hit that first bell and then the game was like, cool, now go underground, deep into hell, and ring a second bell. And I was like, nah. But now I think I'm there. I'm like, okay, cool, let's go ring that second bell. Let's go ring that second bell. Compton, a couple of states amidst the deadline about dealing with water usage around the Colorado River. I guess the feds are going to force the issue now, right? So the feds are forcing the issue. Like, how long until the states begin to say, like, what is this federal government for? How is this federal government actually helping us? And the answer is that it isn't. Like, that's really the truth. That the federal government is just turning into a big giant apparatus that's oppressing its own people, and it's getting really obvious. Litchek says, right, people really don't ever think it can be them, and we live in such an insanely privileged surplus, yet they can't imagine scarcity. Yeah, I think that's the truth. Like, it can't happen here. Of course it can. And it'll happen a lot faster than you think, right? Like, and we're not a very prudent people. We're not very wise or intelligent. In fact, we're rather proud of how illiterate and stupid we are. And so when these things start to happen, we're not going to listen to the people who have actually studied the issue. Take a look at climate change, right? We're not going to listen to the people who are actually like the experts or paying attention to it. We're going to listen to the guy that's the best grifter. We're going to listen to the billionaire who can tell a good story. That's what we're going to listen to, right? We love grifters. We absolutely love them. And what's going to happen is that at the same time that the populace is going, why are we going to spend all this money on the government? Why are we spending all this money on this federal government? At the same time that's happening, you're going to have billionaires who are going like, yeah, I don't want to pay taxes to the government because the government's got to have to pay for itself somehow, right? And so they're going to try to tax the billionaires. The billionaires will go, I don't want to pay those taxes. And the people are going to say, we don't want to pay taxes. So there's going to be like this alignment. And the billionaires, like, imagine, like, Elon Musk already moved to Texas, right? He's already there. So, like, whipping up an independence movement so that the billionaires can keep their hoarded wealth and the workers can feel as though, okay, we're free from the yoke of the government, right? It's an aligning of their desires. So, to me, like, I'm more or less of the opinion that you got to talk me out of it. Like, how does this not happen? You know? I had a little thing here that that was speaking to this. Did I accidentally delete that? I may have. Hold on. Go through them. Wah, 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 wah. Oh, well. Yeah. I vote Cali, too. Yeah. California is the one that makes the most sense to me because I think that as the American federal government turns into, like, an open fascist... Like, you think about, like, DeSantis getting in. Like, on this, like, where do you think all these trans people are going to run to? Where do you think they're going to flee? Right? They're going to flee to, like, California. They're going to go to places like San Francisco. They're going to flee there, right? And you're going to have this, like, genocidal maniac nation that's turning on itself. And meanwhile, economically, the federal government's been nothing but a weight around the neck of California. California is trying to actually do a green transition. Even the Republicans are trying to do it. And the federal government is doing everything it can to prevent it from happening. It's just crazy to watch. Grinning says the Federation of Sovereign Countries is a tool of the oligarchy. It keeps them in power, even across borders. Yeah. Matthew, I live right next to Blue Mesa, Colorado, which is the largest body of water in the state. The water level has been and is currently scary low. Yep. I'm going to be pissed when America starts draining our lake. They're going to do it, though. Yeah. No, yeah, don't think they won't. It'll be like Nestle. Nestle's the one that's going to do it. And like, Nestle has been very... is that right? Yeah, Nestle. Nestle's been very open about it. They literally had a CEO who was like, water should be privatized and we should own the water. Like, that's straight up his opinion. He's openly talking about it. Like... And we're all just like, yeah, okay, he should have anything to say about the way things work. Like, get the fuck out of here. Leon says, I welcome the contraction of the U.S. empire, but their violence is going to turn inward. I deeply fear for marginalized Americans. Yeah, when the empire starts to contract in on itself, it will be deeply violent. Like, not just internally, but externally as well. Like, you think about Israel, like... that if America cannot support Israel militarily, it's very difficult to believe that Israel doesn't experience a fairly major war. Like, it's very difficult to believe, and they've got nukes. Like it's very, very serious what what the contraction of the American empire actually means, and the deep military, like, and what we've done throughout the Middle East, like what we've done throughout Africa, South America, it's all coming home. Like, it's all coming home, and there's no avoiding it. The very people who are overseas managing and maintaining this empire of death and destruction are going to be the next iteration of the political elite. Like, that's what it's going to be. You can see it in people like Dan Crenshaw, right? So these people whose solutions are literally just bomb them, right? Just go in, send a death squad in, kick in their doors, all this. These are the people. This is what's coming, like, for America. It's in my view, it's completely unavoidable. Well, it's not completely unavoidable, but it will require, like, millions and millions of people in the street. Like, millions of people are going to have to mobilize in order to convince these people that we can become ungovernable. Like, we can become ungovernable, right? And if you want us to legitimize your rule, and if you want your rule to remain legitimate, then you got to pretend like we're people. At least pretend like we're people. Santora says, oh, if you've beaten Elden Ring, you're going to slaughter. Thank you, Santora. I appreciate that. Your vote of confidence. I'm really... Now, you got me hyped now. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, I beat Elden Ring, so I feel good about myself. Look at me. Beating Elden Ring. Elden Ring just did it right, man. Like, it was just like everything around that game was just like, I felt so drawn into that game, and like the lore and the world and everything. It felt like what they did is they took like the fantasy world of Skyrim and then just like made it, and it like grew up. It just felt grown up. It was just like, yeah, there's going to be a huge proliferation of private prisons. Absolutely. Slavery will be a pillar of the next round of primitive accumulation in post-Empire America. Absolutely, dude. No, absolutely. The prison slavery system in America is already real. It's already deeply entrenched. And it'll just get way, way more aggressive. Like straight up, you're just going to have, like, roving bands of marshals, right? Fascists, going into small communities and just rounding up able-bodied people and sending them to the local work camp. Like, that's what it's going to be. And their crime will be like some sort of petty, dumb bullshit. And the judges they'll have bought will just be like, yeah, we did it, right? Conton says, Sekiro is one of the most functionally perfect games I've ever played. It looks very, like, intense. Sekiro looks even more intense than the others, because it looks a lot more timing-based. The Scary Man coming in and asking, how do you think America could implement a communist system if possible? To answer this question, the Scary Man, we're going to talk about the balkanization that I was just talking about, because I think it's actually more likely that America will go through a period of balkanization first. It's not going to just say, oh, we should just be communist. Like, and there isn't going to be a big communist movement, and there's not going to be a communist revolution or any of that kind of stuff. I don't think that America and Americans are ready for it. I think that America needs to experience 100 years of humiliation first. And it needs to recognize that what it has done to itself is self-inflicted and utter disaster. Like, there are still Americans walking around thinking that this is cool, that what we're doing is totally chill and everything's absolutely fine. And what we are going to experience first is absolutely a collapse of our dollar. That's inevitable. You can't transition from a unipolar world to a multipolar world where the unipolar world was essentially basing its entire economy on financialization. Like, that's all America does right now. Its entire economy is based on the idea that you want a dollar. That's it. That's America to a T. And sooner than you'd like, America is going to say you want a dollar, and the rest of the world is going to go, no, we don't. And the whole system is going to come down because of it. And the rest of the world is going to look at America and say, what is it that you actually make? What is it that you actually do? And the answer is, oh, well, we make bombs and we drop them. And that's it. That's all we do. And the rest of the world is not going to accept that answer. And so we will be isolated. I keep saying it over and over again. America's doing it to itself. If you sanction everybody else, you're the isolated one. Right? And that's what America is doing. And so we're going to go into a very serious economic tailspin. We are going to collapse very seriously. Like it's going to make this inflationary period look like baby's first inflation. Like what we are going to experience is a utter and total complete catastrophe. It's the catastrophe and the disaster is going to be so bad that all of the people who were saying, like Grindset, all of these hyper individualists who are saying that all you got to do is buckle down, right? The hierarchy is fine and you got to just buckle down into it, Grindset, work hard, do all this stuff, focus on yourself. It'll be revealed that those people were fascists, because that's how devastating it's going to be. And once we experience that devastation, the balkanization process will begin, because there is no system in the United States, not one institution in the United States exists for the benefit of the people. The entire institutional structure of America has turned in on itself. And instead of actually focusing on building a civilization or a society for not only these people, but for the next iteration and the next iteration of people to propel a civilization forward, we've literally ground that all into dust, turned it into dollars, and handed it to 5 people, right? Or 500 people. Like, literally look at the Fortune 500 list. Those people got that way because they ate America. And and so once the balkanization process begins, once the collapse of we are going to plunge into a Great Depression. And the major difference between this Great Depression and the previous Great Depression is that we've got fascists in power now. Like, the previous iteration, there weren't real fascists in power. Well, now there are. Serious ones. Very serious fascists in power. And so during a Great Depression period, we've got fascists in power who are going to start doing extremely extravagant psycho shit. And states are going to break off because of it. The devaluing of the currency and the dollar is going to mean, like, what do we even... Like, who cares what this organization says or thinks at all? And after that happens, after that occurs, people may begin popping out of the woodwork from that process and begin a communist movement that has legitimacy in a single state. And it might begin moving from there. But I don't see a big communist swing happening in America. America's too fascist. Like, we literally purge communists from the conversation, right? Better dead than red, right? That kind of thing. We literally spend billions, if not trillions of dollars to go to countries that are becoming communist and are socialist, and we carpet bomb them. Like, we're not going to permit, in this climate, in this iteration, we are not going to permit a communist anything from happening. That if, let's say, I was able to gather enough people around me to actually begin any kind of legitimate action in any kind of direction, my door will get kicked in by the CIA or the FBI. It'd be exactly like that. But that my door will get kicked in by the CIA, the FBI, I would be disappeared. That's what would happen and will happen. And the idea that so we have to experience major collapses, followed by the abandonment of these institutions. That institutions like the CIA and the FBI and the State Department and these sorts of places, we need to just acknowledge are fascist, that they are not operating for the interests of the public, and we need to declare our independence from them and treat the people who are involving themselves in those processes like for what they are, which is Nazi level shit. These people are like Goebbels and Hitler and like Rommel. Like they're not different. They're the same type of people. And until we get there as a people, we're never going to move towards communism. And that's only going to happen after a major collapse followed by balkanization. And then and eventually one state somewhere right, will begin this process of actually saying, like, actually, this Marx guy knew what he was talking about, and we're seeing the successes in China. We're seeing the successes across the rest of the world. We're going to do this. And they're going to do it. And if they can withstand the military force of the military-industrial complex, which isn't going to go away, by the way, the military-industrial complex will remain powerful and strong for a long time. But if they can withstand the force of that military-industrial complex and actually build a stable environment, then they can begin being the example for the rest of America. And maybe from there, they'll build up, and certain states will begin doing it, and it might begin going down that process. Like, that's the process that I see. Like that, and that seems to be how empires collapse. That seems to be how, like, that's how the Chinese empire has collapsed several times, and that's exactly the process. The Roman Empire collapses. The Indian empires have collapsed. The British Empire, like, when empires collapse, that's the process. And the American Empire is not different. It's going to collapse along very similar lines. And to me, it's just like, and everything I just said, I think sometimes people think like, oh, John, you're just like predicting stuff. It's like, not really. Like, if a building is like this, is it a prediction? Like, if a building's like this, is it a prediction to say the building's going to go like that? Like, is that a prediction, do you think? Like, if a building is like this, and then it's like this, and then it's like this, well, if you say the building's falling over when it's like this, is it a prediction? Not really. Like, everybody knows that if a building's like this, it's falling over, and it's going to go down, right? It's not a prediction. It's just that most people don't actually look at what happens when empires collapse, and most people don't give a shit about what happens when empires collapse because it doesn't fix their transmission. But this is the process, and that's what's going to happen. And our empire is going to collapse. It's going to be swift. It's going to be so fast. Like, people are going to get real fucking blindsided by it. Like it's going to snap some necks. People are just going to be like, and the federal system is not going to care, because the federal system doesn't exist to actually keep the union together and actually benefit the people of America. The federal system exists to extract as much wealth as possible out of the system, and then once it can no longer extract wealth, abandon it. And that's exactly what it's going to do. And then Bill Gates is going to become King Gates, because Bill Gates owns all the farmland, right? People like Bezos and Musk. Well, actually, I think Musk is going to crash and burn, actually. Like, I think Musk is actually going to crash and burn, because his empire is based on nothing, right? Like, Gates actually owns land and property, right? Gates actually owns stuff. Bezos actually owns stuff. He owns enormous distribution networks and things like this, and that's going to be useful. Musk doesn't own anything. Like, he owns some factories and some shit, but it's all based on, like, let's shoot rockets into space and stuff. And it's all a cover for United States militarism, right? The militarization of space and the military, like, sending satellites up and all this. Like, the whole Mars mission is just a cover for the militarization of space. And but once it becomes, like, once the military-industrial complex doesn't need a front man anymore because it's just going to rule nakedly, then they can get rid of this boob. So that's all. Anyway, so on and so on and so forth. Oh yeah, there's a good thing to do. There's a smart, intelligent person I definitely want to talk to. Could bring some states together to create some sort of country that would have the economic benefits of both. Yeah, I think that that's definitely possible. Like, now we are getting predictive, right? Like, that what I've said is more of a general paintbrush, that there's going to be a collapsing sort of thing. But I can't tell you that, like, Texas and Louisiana will get together to make some kind of thing. Like, I don't know. That seems predictive. But sure, that seems completely possible. And if you ask me, actually, I think the southern states generally will band together, like they've always done, right? Like, they formed the Confederacy before. The South will rise again, right? Like, that's going to... if I were to make a prediction, I think that slogan, the South will rise again, will become very much in fashion. That will be like a big, the South will rise again sort of thing. And of course, the South will rise again based on slavery, as always. Lit check. There are some theories about how they may function, but most agree that the individual state almost is certainly going to be very militarized, yet way lower quality of life at the very least. Yeah, like I think it can't not go that way. Like the military and the police are the ones that have all the weapons. They're the most heavily armed. Here's a fact that people are just startled to hear. That if the United States police forces were considered a military, they would be the third largest and most funded military in the world. That you've got the United States military, China, the United States police force. Like, that's how militant and militarized America has become. And because they have all the wealth and the power and the prestige and all that kind of stuff, they're not going to just vanish, right? They're not just going to fade into the woodwork. They're just going to become petty kings and queens, right? They're just going to become the knights of the New World Order, that kind of shit. Like, that's what's going to happen. Florida is going to try to take Cuba, so they got to be ready for that. Yeah, I think that's probably true, Cotton. I don't know that they'll be too successful, though. Canada will also need to balkanize, too. Oh, yeah, I think... Well, I mean, you can see... Like, even in the 90s, like, Quebec had an independence movement that almost worked. Like, they got 49% of the vote. And I bet you that vote was shady. Like, I bet it wasn't legitimate. And but that tells you there's a lot of energy for it. It exists, right? And it can come back. And should there be a collapsing dollar and should there be all this kind of stuff, that shit'll come back, and it'll come back real fast. Oh yeah, dude. No, Quebec disdains the rest of Canada, and there's good reason for it. Go to Quebec City. Go to Quebec City. If you walk through Quebec City, you're like, oh, this place is actually really nice. What a great city this is. Then you go walk through like any other Canadian city, and it's kind of just like a dusty shithole. There's nothing really nice to look at. And if there is something nice to look at, we destroy it. Like... what are we saying here? Let's be honest. No one seriously likes America. I'm pretty sure Cali and New England states don't really like propping up these deep red southern states. Yeah, you know what's interesting is that, like, America's manic. That's the thing. Like, I think to myself, like, if I was to write a script about the world powers and the world countries as people, like personified as people, I just don't think there's any way to get away from the reality that America is, like, manic. That sometimes America is like Britney Spears, right? Sometimes America is Britney Spears and like just like pop stars and like Michael Jackson and like all this kind of stuff and like entertaining the world and everything's like cool, like feed the world, like that kind of shit, right? But then they're like dropping bombs all over the place. So like they got this there's a real duality of how America is. And I think that it's interesting that in this moment, one of the most popular figures in media is Harley Quinn, right? Like a beautiful like woman who is like crazy, like just manic, and I kind of think like, yeah, that's America, you know, that you never know if she's gonna like pat you on the head or punch you in the face. You just never know if it's gonna go down that way, and I just can't help but feel that like America's like pretty schizophrenic, and you can see that in its politics. You can see that everywhere. There's like divides across America, and it's always this like really fucked up duality that exists, like. It's like America has a mental illness. And those red states have deep disdain for the coasts, for sure. Texit. Texit. Yep. That's... I love it. I love that exit as like it was Brexit and not Texit. Marcus says, I think you underestimate how poorly trained police and the average gun owner are. Local militias drool over the prospect of recruiting combat veterans. Yeah, I actually think that you're right, Marcus. Like, that's a fair point, too. I really like your perspective, Marcus. Like, you got a real sharp perspective, and you're bringing, like everything you say. Like, I don't feel like you're checking me. I feel like you're just making it, you're fleshing it out even more. You know what I mean? Because I feel like what I'm saying is, like, a little sliver here. Then you say something, and you're just, like, adding another little chapter onto it. I really like what you're saying here is absolutely true. That local militias, for sure, will attempt to recruit from police forces and recruit military personnel in order to build like a little private mercenary group of their own. And I actually wouldn't be too surprised if that happened in like you think about like where is that? Is it Atlanta? Is it Atlanta where they're building that like cop city? Like that's happening. Like I won't be surprised at all if like state funded and state run police things basically just fall away, and what you're basically left with is private mercenary and military groups that are like a cobbling together of all of that. I think that that's an astute observation for sure, dude. Oh yeah, dude. The balkanization of America, man. I hope I'm alive to begin to see it happen, and I hope nobody kicks in my door while I'm commenting on it because it's gonna be cool. Like it's gonna be scary as shit. It's gonna be scary as shit, but it's also gonna be just like cool. You know, it's going to be really, really wild to watch. Paul Dev. Never seen you here before, bud. Hope you're here to be beautiful. Hope you're having a good one, bud. Hey, man, just dropping by to say that if you're hoping for communism, you have no clue what you're wishing for. Oh, a good start. I come from such a country. I can tell you it's a non-working system. What country, dude? People free-thinking, desire for liberty actually got killed. It was quite normal. You could make jokes. Couldn't even make jokes. What country? Like, let's see how serious this is. Wet Alloy 5316, first comment. U.S. is a schizo and corporations are the voices in our head. Bulgaria. Oh, well, there's something I should base all my opinions on for sure. Forget about the major superpowers that exist around the world. We really got to care about Bulgaria, guys. I'm sorry, bud. I don't mean to make fun. It's just, like, what's the population of Bulgaria? Like, chances are good. Yeah, 6 million people. Like, fucked up things happen all over the world, bud. So, how old are you here? Are we talking about, so we're going to get into the collapse of the Soviet Union, I bet. Like, how old are you, Paul? I bet we're just getting into the collapse of the Soviet Union. Yeah, that's 100% what we're getting into. So, like, chances are good you didn't live under Stalin, right? Like, chances are good that when you talk about Bulgaria as, and I wonder, what's Bulgaria think about? So, I think that's an important observation. What is that? Yeah. 88%, Paul. So you just said go ask people who lived under communism their opinions on it. Meanwhile, those people's opinions, was life better under communism? The percentage of people who said yes, 88% of people, 88% of people when asked in Bulgaria said that life was better under communism. So that's interesting. Like, that's not even one of the little ones, dude. That's not even like Poland, right? Like, that's not even like one of the real outskirt ones. Like, 88% is, I think that might be the highest number on the poll. No, there's a 92. Right? So already, well, okay, that's fine. There's a source right here. It's Gallup that did it. It was opendemocracy.net, InScope, and Gallup. So it's a Gallup poll. So you can take that for what you like and make whatever argument you like. But there's the poll. It exists. And so I'm going to be honest with you, Paul. Like, the narrative that I often hear about the collapse of the Soviet Union, right, and the withdrawal from Eastern Europe from people is that, wow, it was terrible. And I'm like, yeah. You're like, yeah. Like, I don't disagree with that at all. Like, I suspect that the collapse of the federated system and the independence movements and the things that occurred would have been a very difficult period of time. And that the people who were attempting to hold on to the old system of communism likely like I had a conversation recently with a Romanian about this, and he said that, like, yeah, the communists there who was trying to do communism and it just didn't work, it completely failed. It's like, yeah, dude, like you're a little state in a much larger system while the communist idea is retracting, right? Like that, it's not like they tried to build communism and then it fell over. It's literally like the whole thing is being swept away on purpose by the very people who are at the heart of the Soviet system. Like it was a very like and I'm not trying to deny your experience, but what I'm trying to say is that like to just boil it down into like communism was the problem is extraordinarily reductive. Like that's extraordinarily reductive. Yeah, I mean my stats are everything you can see from the uprising in '89 a few years ago before the USSR collapsed. Yeah, currently our country is ruled by the same people who ruled during communism. Right, because the argument of the communists is that it's not really the people that are the problem, it's the system. Right? And you're essentially just confirming what I've always thought of, right? Is that the collapse of communism and the collapse of the Soviet Union through the Eastern Bloc over that period of time is a large systemic issue that I think you can trace. First of all, it's difficult to trace it to a single event, but I think that it has a lot more to do with Russia looking out for its own sovereignty and its own position than it has to do with communism or anything. That the Soviets and the Soviet Union generally is beginning to feel isolated on the world stage. The Sino-Soviet split was a pretty big deal for the Soviets, and it really did put them on the world stage in a very isolated way. They were a diminishing power significantly, and I think the Soviets made the pivot to the West, I think the Soviets understood that they needed to make the pivot to the West, and post-Stalin, once Stalin died, they took the opportunity to begin this pivot towards the West, and the only way that they were ever going to be accepted by their own theory by the West is to get rid of communism, right? And there's just no other way for them to move forward in the world. Like they can't stand alone, right? They know they can't because the threat of war is very serious. And so they buy into an idea of like, okay, if we can't beat them, we'll join them. And we can't join them with this Stalinist communist stuff. Like that's just the truth. Like we can't join them if we're standing there being like, we're Stalinists and we love communism. No, the West will never go for that. Europe will never go for that. Right? And so the choice of the Soviets is to follow a Trotskyist path, which they spent a lot of time purging Trotskyists from their own ranks, so there wasn't a big voice that was saying this. But so their path is to foment communist revolution and to continue that project, or to recede it and then begin to attempt to integrate with the West. And we've seen that's failed, of course, but that's what they've done and that's what they're trying. Yeah, no, Paul, I'm not disagreeing with you, dude, but like I don't think that we should pin that on communism. Like the retraction of the Soviet federal system, right? The communist system, the retraction of that system created a wave of economic despair. And there's just no other way to describe it. And that the people who are living throughout Eastern Europe are living through a major economic crisis. Like a major economic crisis that I don't think it really, like, I think the thing that would be fair to say that, like, if the capitalists were in charge, like, your complaint is that if you want to go work in a different city or something, you need permission, which I don't deny. I think that's absolutely the truth, and all that. Like, so your complaint is about a freedom of movement. Well, if the place was run by capitalists, you'd be poor in the street. That's the simple truth. That your complaint is that like the communists they have a controlled government, and if you want to move somewhere, you got to ask permission and all that kind of stuff. Well, you still got food and shelter, which if you were under capitalism, no, you wouldn't. Like, no, you fucking wouldn't. All of the wealth would be siphoned upwards. They would absolutely collapse the rest of the system. And then just abandon it the way that they do. That's the way capitalism operates, and that's the way the capitalists work. And so like, I hear what you're saying, Paul, but I think that what you're missing in this is that you've got a society that's experiencing a major economic collapse, a major economic receding, a withdrawal of federal power, and an abandonment, if you like, basically being told fend for yourself, a society that's scrambling to try to care for its people and do so in a way that has any dignity or respectability about it whatsoever while they experience this enormous trauma. And I'm agreeing with all of that, and that's definitely happening. But then I compare that to what capitalists would have done, and what capitalists have done, and what capitalists do when that happens. And you know what capitalists would do? They would loot the place, enslave the population, like, seriously. Like, forget about this, like, I need to ask permission and all that kind of stuff. They'll literally round people up and lock them up in penitentiaries, like they have done in the United States. Like, and you'd see, like, an enormous homelessness population. You see enormous despair. So I'm not trying to defend Bulgaria or defend the system that you're experiencing, and I expect that your shittiness of it is accurate, right? I expect that it is accurate. It's a shitty time. It's a shitty thing to experience. But you want to know what would be really shitty? Having some fucking capitalists in control. Having a capitalist system. That would be really fucking shitty. Then you'd really experience heartache. Then you'd really see what a capitalist society, what it means to live in a capitalist society. Like, it's a compare and contrast, no matter how you slice it. And taking the absolute worst moment of a communist experiment and comparing it against the absolute best moment of the capitalist empire is no way to go about this. Like, it's just no way to go about this. Like, you want to compare the absolute worst moment of the communist enterprise? Okay, I'll compare it to the absolute worst moment of the capitalist enterprise. We'll see who comes out on top. And Paul, I mean, like, I think you're probably right, dude. Like, I bet you Bulgaria does need a reformation movement. Like, I think that you're probably right about that. And I wouldn't, like, I think that that's true of most of the Eastern Bloc, if you ask me. That, like, most of the Eastern Bloc could do for some kind of reformation. Here's the problem with that, though, right? The countries that have tried to do that, the countries that do try to move forward in socialist or communist ideas, the Americans go in and bomb, right? Like, we saw that with Yugoslavia, right? Like, we saw that with Kosovo, right? Like, if you do try to build some kind of communist or socialist project, and it does have any kind of success, and it is trying to move forward, you are trying to build a civil society, well, the Americans will just bomb you. So while you're correct, right? While you're correct that, yeah, I bet you Bulgaria does need to do a reformation. I bet you're right. And I bet everything you just said was absolutely true. And that there are these situations and there are these circumstances and all this kind of stuff. Well, if they did it, if they actually stood up and said, we need to do this and we need to have a reformation and build a better society and all this kind of stuff, we should do it around Marxist principles and do like real and really focus on all this stuff. We're going in there to liberate those people of Bulgaria from the evil spread of communism, and we need to make sure that communism doesn't spread throughout the region. Like, Joe Heckens, thanks for your comment, Joe. I hope you're doing well out there, bud. Wet Alloy 5316, you have good points. I'm personally wondering why everyone has the notion that you're told what to do, where to work when under communism. Will this be the case? Or how would that employment system work? I mean, I only have my own ideas. Like, that's all. I only have my own ideas. And part of the thing that's real about the communist experiment is that, like, Marx didn't give any answers to this. Like, Marx is a critique of capitalism. Marx is a critique of capitalism, and said explicitly, like, I'm not going to create the answers. Like, I don't know what the answers are, So you're going to have to figure this out yourselves. And so every time a country embarks on this process of attempting to discover how to move forward towards communism, that they're embarking on a grand experiment, which is why I think a lot of the criticism surrounding China and its move into towards communism has lack a lot of merit. They lack a lot of merit because there is no such thing as true communism. Like, there's no such thing as a true path to communism. And it is going to be different for every country. And every group of people is going to have to come together and have their own discussions about how they want to move towards it. And it's just going to have to be that way. Because every nation is different, and every nation has its own history, and every nation has its own experience, and its own economic structure, and its own economic system. Right? These systems are complex, and it's absolutely the truth. And there is no just one movement in this direction that's absolutely going to result in like, there's no like 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 equals communism. Like, that's just not how it is. And so anything I would say in response to this would just be my idea. Like, that's all. It would just be my idea. And it's like, how would an employment system work? I mean, I think somebody said, what, job fairs? Yeah. Job fairs actually sound real fine, right? Like, just like literally like post the work that needs to be done. And what I actually think is something that people don't like in our society is primarily bullshit jobs. Like, it's primarily garbage, nonsense stuff. Like, there's real work to be done. Right? We've got crumbling infrastructure. Like, we've got real things that actually need to be happen. Like, we've got homeless to house. We've got poor to take care of. We've got real things that happen, but there's no capital for it. We've got no energy in that direction. So everyone's forced to subserviate themselves to these capitalists and do dumb shit that doesn't matter at all. Right? Like, to me, that's the primary complaint of the millennial generation. Like, the boomer generation is a bit like, look, you've got all these amenities and everything's so much better. Why is everybody so miserable? It's because everything we're doing is either meaningless or actively harmful. And we know that's the truth. And we're watching, like, buildings fall over, being like, boy, howdy, I wish anybody would fix that. And if you actually stood up and said, well, I'll fix it, you'd be like, okay, can I get paid for it? Can I get a little bit of money for that? And the answer is, fuck off. No, you can't. And you're just going to watch that fucking bridge fall down. Like, and that's the society you live in. Whereas in a proper society, dare I say a communist society, that you'd literally just be like, oh man, like there's this problem, we should fix it. And you'd walk over to a place and they'd be like, yeah, we need people for that. Here you go. Right? Off you go. Like, I just, and like, the for-profit education system should be absolutely the major thing that pings off in your brain that this is a society of grifters that are absolutely disinterested in helping or doing anything that matters. Like, we absolutely need to get rid of these fucking grifters from our society and actually start working on building things that are real and that actually matter. But we're not there yet. My family from the USSR said that work sectors would have job fairs in schools and universities. You could apply there or learn about the jobs. If nothing appealed, the state would provide a job. Marcus, I've read that capitalism succeeds in being able to produce what people want better than communism, and that one of the primary struggles of a communist state is producing the right amount of things. So this is something that the capitalists will say, right? But how capitalists produce things is by going to another country, stealing the resources, enslaving the population, and then getting the stuff and being like, wow, capitalism generates so much wealth. And capitalism doesn't generate wealth. Capitalism transfers wealth through force. That's how capitalism works. And if you're on the receiving end of the toy, like if you get the toy, you're like, wow, capitalism's the greatest, right? You just need to ignore like the literal enslaved child, the person being thrown into a mine shaft, the village that got burnt down to the ground, and all of the resources that got plundered from that country, to believe that, wow, capitalism's the greatest, or simply not care. That's the other side, is that there's definitely people in the conversation who are like, wow, I got my toy. Thanks, slaves. The slaves made me this because we shot them because they're an inferior people. Toy for me. Capitalism's great. That 100% exists in the conversation. Yeah, I really feel like what, Paul, you're describing is a post-Soviet society, not really like like when the communist enterprise in the Soviet Union was really building itself up in a socialist and communist way, they achieved really amazing things. Like, objectively. Like, I don't think you can really debate that. That if you were living in the society as the things that were happening in the Soviet Union were happening, you'd be screaming about it. You'd be over the moon about it. Like, the Soviets are the first people into space. The Soviets defeat the Nazis, right? The Soviets take an agrarian country that's ruled by literal kings and change it into an industrial superpower in the space of a generation. Like we're talking about a country that was doing incredible shit. And then it just stopped doing it. And the whole thing fell apart because of geopolitical reasons. It wasn't that communism stopped working as an economy. It wasn't that the economics of communism stopped working. It's that the geopolitical environment changed. And, like, I don't know why people pretend like World War II didn't happen to the Russians. I don't know why this is something that I have to constantly bring up and constantly remind people and constantly talk about and constantly mention over and over again, that Europe attacked Russia and massacred 27 million people. Like, I don't know why I need to constantly bring this into the conversation, and why this overt, overwhelming, obvious fact isn't just built into the mindset of people, that Russia experienced an enormous tragedy and an enormous impact that still reverberates to this day. A trauma that we simply do not begin to understand in any kind of capacity whatsoever. That if the Nazis rolled through your country and murdered like millions of people in their bloodthirsty quest for purity and gold and spoils, you're not going to go home and be like, okay, time to build an empire, like time to build a society. You're going to be like, I need to lie the fuck down. I need to lie the fuck down. I'm tired. I'm tired. Right? So yeah, I bet the Russians didn't go home and immediately think to themselves, yeah, better get to work. They probably went home and were like, that was an enormous trauma. I'm going to drink some vodka. Like, and I don't know why this doesn't play. And so after Stalin dies, right, the leader of the Russian people during that period of time, the rest of the people who are left are like, I don't want Europe to ever attack us ever again. I never want 27 million people to be massacred by Nazis in my country ever again. I never want Europe to do it ever again. How do we do that? How do we make it so that this crazed, psychopathic nation doesn't ever rise up and do that to us ever again? And a good strategy is to ally with it, is to be its buddy, is to be like, okay, hey, haha, we're trading. You don't need to come over here and blow us up and steal our resources. We're trading for it. Look, we've got it. We're going to give it to you. We're trading. Aren't we good friends? Aren't we buddies? And there's absolutely no way that the West is going to do that if you're going, because we're communists. So you got to get rid of it. You got to get rid of the communism. You got to get rid of all that kind of stuff. Like, I don't think the Soviet Union collapsed. I think that the people of Russia were so fucking traumatized by Westerners that they were willing to do anything to ensure it never happened again. And I don't think it's a crazy perspective that, like, a people who experienced a bloodletting on the level of a Nazi invasion would not want that to happen again. So, and so, yeah, there's a retraction, and yeah, there's a post-Soviet period, and yeah, I'm sure it's shitty. Absolutely, I'm absolutely sure that it's shitty, for sure, right? I suspect World War II was pretty shitty too. What you're saying is a fact, but that's something that has to be addressed towards big business and not try to swing into the direction where your country literally owns you. But like, here's the difference, Paul. Like, do you want to work for the benefit of your country, or do you want to work for the benefit of like a pedophile fucking like Bill Gates? Like that's really the difference. Spell. Don't think I've ever seen you here before, bud. Hope you're doing well. I think most communists, Marxist Leninists, end up moving away from communism and just becoming a capitalist, state capitalist nation. Very centralization creates new elites, betrays the revolution. So spell. Every communist theory about how to move your society towards socialism and communism begins with you need a moment of state capitalism. Like there is no theory, not from the Chinese, not from the Russians, not from the Cubans, not from anybody that says you can just take over and do communism. Everybody, Lenin said it, Trotsky said it, Stalin said it, Mao said it, Deng said it, Xi Jinping said it, everybody says it. There's no theory on the table that says anything other than if you are a capitalist nation or a nation ruled by capitalist ideas, you need a period of state capitalism, and then you can move forward from there, right? And so when you say it just ends up being a state capitalist nation, it's like, yes, that's the theory. That's the whole idea, is that instead of having private interests who operate capitalist enterprises independently of the state, those enterprises become part of the state and run by the state, and then very steadily over time can become, can change into other systems. But this idea that you're just going to be like, we're communists now, it's just not serious. It's just completely unserious. And the place where you can see these transitions happening in real time, by the way, in real time, you can see this very transition happening in a serious way that is extremely interesting to watch, is China. That China has had a period of state capitalism. It had a period of market liberalization under Deng. and now they're moving into more worker-controlled and worker-owned enterprises and a more spreading of egalitarian systems. I mean, the eradication of poverty in China is something that you would never see in a capitalist nation under any circumstances. Well, I should say under any circumstances. The threat of revolution will do it, but outside of that, so if you are saying that communism doesn't work because of this period of state capitalism, I'm here to tell you that's the whole idea. Like, that's the whole idea, that communists are like, yeah, we're going to take over and then we're going to nationalize systems, right? The state will run them. We're not going to change them so much, right? We're going to steadily integrate them and steadily move them into a different kind of a thing. So like changing a company from a privately owned capitalist enterprise to like a worker co-op, for example, is not just as simple as saying like, oh, you're a worker co-op now, bye. Like that's no way to seriously run a country. That's no way to seriously run an industry. You gotta take this, you gotta remove this element. The state apparatus comes in, and then very steadily you can move it in. Like, you gotta erect a workers' council, right? You gotta erect a thing inside of it. You gotta erect structures to make sure that what you're doing is going to be successful, right? And to make sure that the people actually understand what it is they're doing. Like, it really isn't, like, you can't just cast a spell. How do you like that spell? I got your name in there. You can't just cast a spell and make it happen. It's hard work, and it's difficult, and it takes a lot of time. And most of the time, when communist countries have been trying to do this very thing, Westerners come and blow it up. So you got that to deal with as well. People pretend as though like communists and communist nations just like fell apart and fell on their face, when the opposite is true. That when communist nations experience setback, it's because they're fucking being bombed. Like, Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia are fucking carpet bombed. North Korea is fucking carpet bombed. Like this idea that, oh, well, communism never works. Yeah, then why are you bombing it so much? Why are you going into Libya? Like, why are you destroying Libya? Like, it's obviously because, and the capitalists understand this, that they cannot tolerate the existence of an alternative system. They cannot tolerate it. That the existence of an alternative system is the death knell of capitalism, and they know it. And so they gotta bomb the shit out of it. And pro-capitalist people always ignore this, which I find to be strange, honestly. Like, I find that to be really, really creepy. That capitalism is going around and invading places and, like, straight up, like, genocides and cleansings and just carpet bombings and massacres and murders. And we've made movies about it. Like, we've made enormous, high-scale budget movies, like Full Metal Jacket, like huge, enormous, like everybody knows about Vietnam and all this kind of stuff, and the capitalists are still like, it's communism that's the problem. Yeah, certainly not having anything to do with our carpet bombing. Like, obviously. Like, I don't give a shit what system you're trying to do. If somebody comes along and carpet bombs you, like, you're not going to be successful. I would be happy to take a video on the busiest street in my city. Count how many old Ladas. Good old Ladas. They were tough cars, no doubt. Yeah, because they were tough, because they were simple and low-powered. Yeah, because those were the priorities, right? Simple, easy to repair, low-powered. They were built without planned obsolescence. Yeah. Wet Alloy says, you can get better quality products with capitalism, but it's either coming at the expense of someone being exploited, or you're buying a product that was literally made to break next month's because profits. Exactly, Wet Alloy. Thank you. Yeah. Generation Y me. Simple and low powered. So what? It's a car. Do you need to go 150 in 60 seconds? Yeah. Do you want a big sunroof? We'll call it a moonroof instead because it's bigger. Innovation. Yeah, like Apple in their innovation. No, but imagine traveling 300 miles for about 7 hours with an old Ziguli or Lada because you can't even overtake on a highway, which was started in the 70s and still not finished. Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's a reason why. Like, capitalism can't actually build major infrastructure projects anymore. Like, shit used to get built. Right? Shit used to get built. When there was a powerful state enterprise that was incentivized to build and there was actual competition in the world, like the Soviets existed, and the Soviets were doing all kinds of crazy shit, like getting into space and shit. You have this heavy incentive to actually, like, convince your own people that your own system is legitimate. And but the reason why capitalists can't build anything anymore is because they no longer care. Their solution to this problem is now overt propaganda, which is very effective. The American people are heavily propagandized, easily the most propagandized people on the planet. It's not close. It's not close at all. Like, literally, America, and then find the nation you think is propagandized, and it's just like right down in the basement. So America is easily the most propagandized nation on the planet. And the reason why they can't get anything built is because if the state announces it wants to build an infrastructure process, well, then the capitalists come along and vulture it, right? So think about, like, we want to build a rail from, like, Montreal to Toronto, right? Real simple, real easy. We want to build a rail. Okay, well, the first thing the capitalists will do is buy up all that land, right? And the government will be like, well, we say the project is like this, right? It'll be a $10 billion project. And the people that elect these guys are like, oh, okay, $10 billion, we can justify that, okay. Then the capitalists will come along, buy up all the land, buy up all the resources, jack the price, and now your $10 billion project is a $20 billion project. And that leaves your politician in the position of explaining to the people that, oh, I have to explain to the people now why the project doubled in price without going, it's these fucking capitalists, right? So many times politicians in our system have to find another reason when the reason is the capitalists, right? They can't just point to the capitalists because the capitalists own them, right? And so what happens? The project falls apart. And then usually this guy takes the heat, right? But the capitalists are fine with that. Or the project continues, but at double the price. And that example that I just gave happens every single step of the way. It's not just the land, it's the iron. It's not just the iron, it's the bolts. It's not just the bolts, it's the wood. Every step of the way, capitalists are inserting themselves into the process and doubling, tripling, quadrupling the price every single step of the way, every single time. Like, it's why nothing can get built. And then what do? They turn around and they say, it's government regulation. We need to cut this red tape. That's the real problem. That's the real problem. It's the government red tape that we wrote ourselves because we own the government. That's the problem. And we're just like, yeah, that's the problem. The government's the problem, not the people who own the government and the politicians, obviously. Generation says, I come from a place that only recently got a 4-lane highway. It was built in a relatively short time, but people were talking about it for years and nothing happened. Yeah, for exactly these reasons. Like exactly these reasons. Paul says, our country went to default 3 times during how does that work? How's the country devolve 3 times during communism? Like they don't rely on the financialization in the financial sector. Like it's not the only thing that saved, like, do you mean the post-Soviet period? Is that what you mean? The only thing that saved us is the fact that we didn't buy any foreign goods. We got our energy security from Russia in exchange for influence. So literally Russia just said, there you go, bro. Okay. It happened relatively quickly when the construction started because it was just for a small portion of highway, yeah. Like what year, Paul? Like what year? I'll need to hear of the year because like things are different in the Soviet Union and the post-Soviet period. Like when I hear like a nation defaults, like what do you mean by that? One of the things that I think is difficult for people to understand is like a nation can't actually go bankrupt. Like, that's not really a thing that is actually real, right? Like, the rest of the nations can just decide that that currency isn't valuable, that they can't really get anything out of it. But that usually ties into a larger kind of thing. Like, and anyway. I often find that people say, like, oh, the country went bankrupt or defaulted, as if it's like a casino or like a pub or something, where it just went tits up. Right? Nations aren't businesses, you know? They're nations. Like, governments aren't businesses, they're governments. I just, it gets very annoying. Russia tried to move towards capitalism without control of the world's resources. The world's resources were in the hands of the West. Well, and the places where they were trying to get resources from and could get resources from, the Americans would blow up. Right? Like that's the whole idea behind the Cold War. Right? The whole idea behind, like, what is a Cold War? Well, a Cold War means that you are antagonistic to another nation, your rivals, right? And so you're going to blow up other things except them. Like a hot war is that you're blowing them up. A Cold War is that you're blowing up everything else so that they can't have access to it. Right? So you're not going to bomb China, but you'll bomb a Somalian mine where the Chinese get the resources they need to build fighter planes, right? So China can't really justify going to war with America or getting into American soil, and nor should they or want to, given the nuclear threat. But, you know, and China can do this the other way. And so that's what it means to have a Cold War. That you find the resources that the nation is relying on and you undercut them. And you destroy them. Yeah, more bombs were dropped on Vietnam than all of World War II. And Korea was hit with more bombs than the entire Pacific theater. Yeah, the fact, Spell, this is exactly right. The fact that Cuba still exists is incredible. How the guys can just make fucking vaccines while being heavily sanctioned and Western imperialism. Yeah, that's communism for you, baby. That's communism for you, baby. And if you ask me, it is actually, like, the hard reality is that the Che Guevara and Fidel Castro made a strong enough military force and a strong enough military threat for the Americans that it would be a deep, intracted, difficult war for the Americans, and the Americans wouldn't really get anything out of it. Like, what does Cuba actually have? Like, there's no oil, right? There's no uranium. There's no cobalt. There's no lithium, right? They've got sugar plantations and rum factories and tobacco farms and cigar factories. Like, they don't have the like enormous resource base that where the Americans can justify some kind of major invasion. And so they've just decided, okay, then we'll just keep you poor. And anytime anybody points out or says that Cuba is a successful communist country, we'll just be like, well, then they're so poor. Look how poor they are. They're so poor. Communism doesn't work. They're so poor. Forgetting the fact that they've like wrapped their neck around them and are just strangling them to death. Like if the sanctions were lifted, Cuba would become a very wealthy nation and it would happen very fast. Like, when I was in Cuba, the thing that really struck me was that they didn't have any tools, right? They didn't have any tools. That they were doing fairly complex tasks with very rudimentary tools. And that meant that it took them forever to do it, right? So, like, instead of, like, I remember there was one guy I saw, he had a little stone... He was putting tiling in his house. He was improving his house steadily with tiles, right? And he had to get a hole in the middle of one so he could slide it over a pipe. And he was using a hand chisel and just tick, 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 tick. And you ask him, how long is that going to take you? And the guy's like, probably about a week, you know, to make sure it happens. And I don't want it to break. I want it to be good, right? Nice and clean, right? Do it around very steadily over time. Probably take me about a week, because I also work a job and all this kind of stuff. And I remember my dad looking at me and being like, this guy just needs a Dremel. If this guy had a Dremel, this would be over in 5 minutes. Done. Right? So you think about like a Cuban with a Dremel. Well, suddenly now you've got somebody who can go around and be like, hey, can I just like, I'll get $1 from you, just Dremel. Or give a guy a drill. Right? Suddenly you got a guy who can go around, just, right? Instead of what they got, which is just hand tools, basically. And some of the more dim-witted capitalists will be like, well, so then they really do rely on capitalism and all of, because they need to build their industries. Like, they don't have the resources for this shit, dude. What they have is tobacco. Like, they've got luxury goods. They've got a dearth, an overwhelming supply of luxury goods. They've got so many luxury goods that they have factories built that they don't use because they can supply these luxury goods to their own citizens, and they're freely available. You can just get them, right? Like, for God's sakes, you go to some of the like tourist traps that exist there, and you get all the like alcohol for free with your little package or any of that kind of stuff. Like, literally as much rum as you want to drink, right? And you ask the Cubans, like, how can you afford to give us all this rum for free? And they're literally like, you don't understand how much of this we have. Like, you don't understand how much of this we have. Like, under Fidel Castro and Che Guevara, we built factories with the expectation that we would be exporting this like mad. And because of the sanction regime that happened to us, because the Americans literally have put a boat off of our harbor, we straight up can't get it out. And so we just don't trade it. We don't have, it doesn't happen, right? And so their factories are shut. Well, do you know what would happen if the sanction was lifted and they could actually ship this stuff out? They'd open that fucking factory up, right? They'd start planting more sugar, start planting more tobacco, start getting the Cuban cigars going, right? Ramp that production right up, build productive capacity for the things that they can actually do. And the very first thing that I think that they would buy as a people, if they had any excess wealth at all, tools. Just tools. Get tools into that society and you're going to watch the Cuban people build themselves a country. For sure. And they'll do it on Marxist principles, and it'll be a beautiful little gem that exists off the coast of America. And then the Americans will bomb the shit out of it, because they can't have that. Anyway. I could actually say that what I see from the U.S. and Western countries going the same thing we went through in 1944. I'm pretty sure you will get some form of communism. Pretty sure you won't like it in the end. It starts with the censorship you're currently getting. But this is capitalism, bud. Like, it starts with the censorship you're currently getting. Like, this is capitalism. Like, this is capitalism in late stage collapsing into feudalism. Like, we're not even remotely close to communism. Like, not even remotely. We're on the other end of the spectrum. Like, one guy I talked to claimed he was a refugee from Russia who went to Yugoslavia. Then they had to emigrate to Venezuela and then back to Cuba, and they had to come to America. Yeah, right. Like, there does come a point where you do kind of have to start rolling your eyes a little bit, right? Like, how much of this is like I read the Gulag Archipelago, and that was 100% fact. You mean the fictional book that was written and is used as propaganda in America? Interesting. Yeah, I've never really heard anybody very convincing when they're from a formerly communist nation. Yeah, me as well. Like, I've never really been that convinced. Like, even when they say things that I think are, like, that I do think are true and have merit, I'm just like, yeah, but it's a compare and contrast. And, like, if all you're going to do is say, we have things so nice here in America, while ignoring the fact that the reason why we have things nice here is because slaves make our shit, right? Slaves make our shit, slaves destroy, if you just ignore that, then yeah, okay, great. The West is the greatest country in the world. Or the America is the greatest country in the nation. So usually their debt is in U.S. reserves dollars. They can't create it, so it goes bankrupt. In comes the IMF parasite, privatization of national resources infrastructure. Yeah, that's the classic strategy of the IMF, right? Create debt traps, right? And this is like, we're a culture of grifters. Like, don't deal with the West, and very steadily the rest of the world is realizing this. Like, that's why you have like the BRICS organization. That's why you've got these big organizations erecting around the world. Because they understand how it's going. Like, they understand how it's going. In the sense of not being able to pay your national debt. National debt to who? The IMF? Because those loans are designed to not be paid back. Like, that's the whole point of the International Monetary Fund, is to create debt traps. It's very similar to, like, any kind of money loaning, like payday lenders. Like, payday lenders want you on the hook forever, right? They want you to default on loans. They want you to constantly be parasticizing your life. They want to get in there and entrench you and entrench in your life and make it so you can never get out from underneath the debt that they saddled onto you. Like, that's how the IMF actually works. Like, that's the whole idea. And there's a reason why, moving forward into the future, countries are not going to deal with the IMF, because that practice, this parasitical practice, is no longer necessary, because you have a place like China. And China is like, what China will do is China will give a place a loan and say, like, hey, we're going to give you a loan so that you can build a port. And on the condition that we, as China, get to use that port for a set period of time, and they negotiate that and all. That's great. And so then they build the port, and then the country goes, hey, China, like, we're never actually going to be able to pay that loan back. Like, that's not going to happen. We're never going to make enough money from the port for ourselves to do what we would like to do and then also pay you back. And you know what China does? China just goes, yeah, dude, money's not real. Like, because they operate on Marxian principles. They don't operate on American financial systems. Right? They understand that plunging a country into enormous debt and impoverishing its citizens isn't valuable. What is valuable is that The port got built. The port got built. The people in the country can use it. The Chinese can use it. And now the debt, the struggle that existed between them, the money, the debt, is gone. Win-win. That's what China calls win-win diplomacy. Right? That's not how we do things. That's not how we roll. We roll into a nation and we say, hey, do you want that port? Hey, buddy there, I've got a great deal for you. We are going to get that port built and you're going to be able to pay it off over time. Absolutely, for sure, because we're here to wheel and deal with you and make sure that everything's good. We're going to let you build that port. Won't that be great? Here's the money, right? And the people go, oh, yeah, you know what? And if you get a guy that's like, I don't know America, then you know what they do? They coup that guy. They overthrow that guy. And they install a guy who goes, yes, America. Yes, a big giant loan. Absolutely, America. We will build that port, America, with the loan that you are giving us. And then that guy will turn around and be like, America, we are not going to be able to pay that loan back. And then you know what America does? America goes, well, then it's our port. And you can't use it. And you still owe us the money. That's American diplomacy. So you pick which one you want, because it's a compare and contrast. I saw a program about how U.S. students are going to Cuba to become doctors for free. Yeah, dude. Like, this is something that is beautiful about like communist nations and communist cultures, is that they welcome people in. And literally will be like, oh yeah, like you want education, you want this kind of stuff? Absolutely. Absolutely. Like we're doing this shit anyway. Like I've got a classroom anyway. You might as well sit in on it. Right? Like all of this financialization and all this parasticization, all of this me kind of stuff goes away. I think the most beautiful example of this is that there are American boomers who are choosing to retire in, get this, Vietnam. That Americans are moving to Vietnam in order to retire. Can you imagine? Can you imagine going through the absolute horror of the Vietnam War as the Vietnamese people, and then the very people who sent those bombers over say, yeah, I'd like to retire there. And your attitude of it is, yeah, great, come on over. Wow. Wow, bud. That's forgiveness. That's forgiveness. Cuba was trashed by the U.S. to make an example to Latin America. I feel like Latin America is the example that the U.S. used to make an example to Latin America. They didn't need Cuba. They didn't need to trash Cuba to make an example to Latin America. It's actually, says Marcus, it's actually impressive how self-sufficient the Russians are with energy and food production. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and this is true. Yeah, a lot of the European nations, because they went through a period of socialism and a period of, communist overthrow threats and things like this, decided to actually allow free education, things like this. But also, I think there are countries, like, the idea of making your citizens pay for an education is so stupid. Like, it's a very dumb idea from the outset. Like, you want to know what convinces me more than anything that America is a country of grifters that is completely disinterested in building a civilization or a society of any sort? It's the fact that they're making kids pay for an education. Like, full stop. Full stop. You don't need to go any farther. Like, you're making your own citizens pay to be able to be part of a civil society and be a contributing member of the society. So you're saddling them with this enormous debt, and then telling them that they've got to go get a job with a worthless, pathetic parasite, a capitalist, in order to pay off that debt, and then they can enjoy the benefits of it. It's a grift. It's a fucking grift. All the way around, from the start to the finish. And other countries who are like, we should build a civilization. Maybe having a society that works and functions is a good idea. Have put together that the way to do that the way that you actually educate people and ensure that they know what they're talking about and they know what they're doing and how to think and how to have critical thinking skills is to educate them. And the best way to educate them is to provide it for free. Let anybody go to university. Let anybody do it. Like literally anybody at any moment at any time can be like, I'm going to go back to school, and the system will go, great. What do you want to study? You want to go? How do you want to challenge yourself? You want to go here? You want to go do that? You want to go do this? What degree do you want? What do you want to do? Great. And it's not great for the people because it's well, this will be an economic boom. You don't need to even create an economic argument for it. It's good to have a civilized people who understand things, who understand how to think with their brain, who understand how to be challenged, who understand how to contemplate and consider other ideas, right? Like that's just good by itself. You don't need this fucking like Kevin O'Leary scumbag bullshit coming in to the conversation at all. This dingy nonsense that says, well, how does that make money for capitalists? Who cares? Who cares? Completely delete it. Utterly worthless. Yeah, Germany is not under brutal sanctions from an overwhelming superpower far away, yeah? Or not far away. Like, here, Bulgaria, here's energy to heat your homes at night. Don't worry about it. Yeah, exactly, Marcus. I love it. Like, Paul just casually says this as if that's not a big fucking deal. And it's like, yeah, don't worry about it, Bulgaria. We're buds. We're bros, bud. Duck Plays Gaming. Duck Plays Gaming. Coming in with the big questions. Hold on. I'll get to you, Duck. I promise. Sorry, my thing jumped down. Yeah, I just learned that Massachusetts wants to offer nonviolent offenders a lesser sentence if they agree to organ donation. Least creepy society. Oh, you're in here because you smoked some weed, eh? Give us a kidney and we'll let you out soon. Least creepy society, dude. You know what? I do want to answer this question because I haven't actually had, and I've only got 15 minutes left on the clock, so I think this is what I want to talk about. Duck Plays Gaming. Good to see you, bud. You asked once, why am I a commie? Why do you want communism? Very straightforward questions, honestly asked, bud. Hope you're here in good faith. I hope you're having a beautiful time out there, bud. Why am I a commie? I call myself a communist because everyone around me called me a communist. And it really is as simple as this. I saw that there were homeless people. I said, why are there homeless people? And simply by asking the question, people would say that I'm a communist. And then if anybody actually engaged me, they'd always be like, oh, well, those people have mental illnesses. Or they're idiot, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, do they? And then you go talk to them, right? You do what nobody else actually does, which is you go and you actually talk to them. And sometimes, yeah, they had mental illnesses, sure. But then I would always just say, so what? Like, I don't understand why having a mental illness means you get abandoned and thrown out onto the street. That seems like a bad thing for a society to do. That seems fascist. That seems brutal. That seems like something that is wrong, right, for a society to do. Take its mentally ill and throw them into the streets homeless, right? But more often than not, you would talk to these people and, like, they're rough people, but they're not, they seem fine, right? They seem to be making it through the best that a person can make it through. And then you begin saying, like, okay, so wait, what is happening to people? And you hear these people's stories. And it's always some kind of, like, dumb fuckery that happens in their life. Like a tsunami coming through and wiping everything out, right? And they just can't get back on their feet. And then very steadily you start to see that not only is there no system to actually help them alleviate their homelessness, that there are lots of systems in the society that exist to benefit from their homelessness. Like, and that's the hard truth about our society. And then eventually I just like, so, and this is all before I even encounter Marx. This is all before I even encounter Marx. I'm just literally like, there are homeless people. That is wrong. It's not their fault. Like, that's a dumb idea. The idea that people are homeless because it's their fault is outrageously stupid. Like, you got to be a very dim-witted person to actually believe that. And even if you want to believe that, like, oh, it's mental illness, my answer to that is, so who gives a shit? Like, what are you talking about? Oh, they've got a mental illness, therefore they're homeless? What the fuck? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? And so Jordan Peterson shows up, starts talking shit about Marxists. And my feeling was, well, if this guy's talking shit about Marxists, I bet I love them. And so I read the Communist Manifesto and was like, oh yeah, this is everything I've ever believed. Like, this is everything I've ever known to be true. Just articulated very specifically and very accurately. And so I had already become a live streamer. Like, I was already doing live streams at that point, based on kind of my own feelings and my own thought about how the capitalist society is fraudulent. And then as soon as I read that, I called myself the Canadian commie, and I've been off to the races ever since. Because I think that much of what I say is actually quite obvious. That we are living in a society that is heavily propagandized, that is not self-aware and is delusional about itself, is hyper propagandized. The most propagandized nation on earth. Not close. Like, it's not close. People talk about, like, Russian propaganda and Chinese propaganda. Those people are not even remotely close in terms of how much they've been propagandized by their government and by their society. We have the CIA, the FBI, the United States State Department, Disney. Like, we've got enormous media apparatus that are designed to propagandize the people. And we've been so heavily propagandized that we can't see what is or is not true any longer. That's why we're in this period of post-truth, because nobody knows what is or is not true anymore, because there are entire, like, multi-billion-dollar reasons. Oh, Duck, I was hoping you weren't going to embarrass yourself, dude. Like this is the propaganda that I'm talking about, bud. Like, you have been taken in by a system of propaganda. By a deep system of propaganda. Like, if these are the things that you're saying, you've been deceived. I'm not trying to say that you're gullible. I'm not trying to condescend to you. But if these are the things that you're saying, then you have been deceived. That there are enormous media systems that exist in your society specifically to convince you that communism is bad, right? That are obvious. Their stated goal is to do that. The reason the CIA exists is to destroy communism. And their budget is hundreds of billions of dollars, right? And if you are here telling me, like, let's read these aloud. I'm here in good faith. I just ask, I study history, right? History, right? I see the YouTube clips too, bud. I saw in World War II, the USSR were most efficient holding the line against Germany, but they were led by the biggest nutcase the world has ever seen. I would argue that Adolf Hitler was probably the biggest nutcase the world has ever seen. Actually, it could be argued that Truman is one of the biggest nutcases the world's ever seen. He dropped 2 nuclear bombs on civilians during World War II, right? So already, bud, I've got a big question mark looming over you, right? So you're sidestepping Adolf Hitler, who did the Holocaust, like, and we all know that, right? That happened openly. And you're going to sidestep the people who dropped nuclear bombs on civilians. Okay, and you're choosing instead Stalin, whose crime seems to be that he was a little too mean. You know, he went a little bit too far sometimes. Yeah, okay, bud. And in China, I love this. This is my favorite comment. And in China, the reason that communism is in power because they were led by a man who killed 30 to 50 million. And Xi Jinping did a very good job leading them out of it. into capitalism. I assume that's what your point is. This is the most uninformed thing I have heard today. Duck Plays Gaming. There are two very major problems with your statement. I love it. I love it. Hold on, sorry. The double down here. I always love it when people double down. Stalin was the biggest nutcase the world has ever seen. So not Hitler, who did a genocide against the Jewish people, who rounded communists up. The first concentration camp was a communist concentration camp. Not that guy, right? Not Adolf Hitler, the man who attacked the Russians, the man who launched World War II, the man who murdered 26 million people, right? That guy, fine, right? Or at least a step down, right? Stalin, the guy who defended against that, he's the biggest nutcase. This is a great way to end the stream. This is a great way to end the stream. Like, yeah, Hitler was a capitalist. Straight up. Yeah, well, history says it's bad. Hold on. Are we having a further double down? The fact that you say communism is good is just terrible because a lot of my family died from communism. So your recent family died from communism. Where are you from? Hitler was a fascist. Fascism is a wing of capitalism, bud. Like, capitalism creates fascism. Fascism is a form of capitalism. Like, Adolf Hitler was a capitalist. No, I'm not saying that you think that Hitler was good. I'm saying that you think Hitler is better than Stalin. Like, that's your position, right? Guy that openly stated he wanted to commit a genocide against people, wrote a book about it, right? Rounded a bunch of Jews up, committed World War II, right? Literally a psychopathic murderer, better than Stalin. That's the position, right? That's your position, right? You see how unserious this sounds? Are you hearing it? I hope you are, bud. I hope you're hearing how unserious this sounds. Because it sounds extremely unserious. Like, certainly to me. Like, and it really makes me be like, yeah, this guy's opinion is probably not one I need to take too seriously. Like, Boatmation, very, very serious comment. I'm very sure it's not just a kid saying shit. Like, my family all died in communism. So you're what, like 90? Like, how old are you? I agree the U.S. has done some weird stuff. Yeah, but I would argue, Duck, that you probably don't know what Stalin even did. Like, I'd be very surprised to find out that you actually knew anything about Stalin. Like, that's the thing that's funny about people like yourself, who come into these chats and very confidently proclaim things that I know to be false, as if they're like factually true. And then when I push back on you, or when I push back on people like you, I find out very quickly that you don't actually know anything. Like, that's the thing that I find really interesting about this. Like, I feel like you've just watched some YouTube videos, like a Simple Explain or something like that. So you got like a Cole's Notes sort of version. And so you think you know something. And like, just, you probably don't. Yeah, like this kind of dumb stuff. Like this, like, Duck, this is dumb. In World War II, some men were sent into the war just to run at the enemy and die. Like, did you watch like a little animated thing? Like, what's that called? The History Simplified? I bet you watched like History Simplified videos, right? That was one of Stalin's policies. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. This is a serious thing that people should take seriously. Like, dude, like, it's as unserious as it gets. Like, it's as unserious as it gets. Like, I know you don't know anything. So, I think my advice for you is to stop watching YouTube videos. Stop taking that seriously, because it's unbelievable how easy it is to propagandize people. You're really displaying it for us right now. Like, we're really, really seeing it in front of us. Have a good one, Paul. Good to see you, bud. Excuse me. Yeah, of course my position is one-sided, bud. You don't... all you ever hear is one side. So we need another side. That would be me. Of course my position is one-sided. You know what the other side is. I love how you use a PC made by a communist. No, I use a PC made by a worker. A worker that's exploited by a system of capital. And I would like the worker who made my PC to be the primary, if not the exclusive, beneficiary of the labor that he used to make that PC. Like, this whole, like, you use capital, like, dude, you are just embarrassing yourself over and over and over again here. Like, these are low level, like kindergarten level talking points that come out of, like, Ben Shapiro. That are embarrassing. And you gotta know that they're embarrassing. Like, do not say this stuff to your buddies. Because while they might laugh with you, because they're your buddies, they think that you're dumb for it. Like, capitalists did not make my computer. Workers did. Workers put the labor in. Workers put the time in. Workers put the effort in. Workers are the one who soldered it. Workers are the one that programmed it. Workers are the ones that designed it. Workers are the ones that invented it. Workers are the ones that created it. And then capitalists take all of the benefit of it, give those guys a stipend, and tell them to go get fucked. That's the system you live under. Like, and then you turn around and try to pretend like I'm a hypocrite for benefiting from the work of another person, when that's the entire point. Yeah, exploited workers make your PC, not capitalists. That the system of capital says that those workers get paid basically nothing. They get to survive in exchange for a capitalist getting, what, $100 billion so he can go have sex with children on Epstein's island? Like, it's grow up time here, bud. Like, for real. If you're going to hang out in this chat and talk to me, don't bother with this shit. This is baby shit. It is grow up time. Abandon all the bullshit you're watching, because it is babyish. Little kid shit. CIA propaganda spoon-fed to you, and you're just like, oh my goodness, the CIA propaganda is so delicious. Grow up. Yeah, communists invented the cell phone. Yeah. Exploited workers make your toilet paper. Exploited workers made those coffee beans. Yep. Okay, I'll admit it. I bought a giant bulk pack of toilet paper at the start of COVID. It lasted me about 8 months. Everybody's buying toilet paper. I gotta get a toilet paper. You going up there? You got all your toilet paper? Oh, I'm going to buy all this toilet paper. We're in a crisis. We're in a crisis. Yeah, I feel you grinning. I feel you, dude. Just use a bucket of water in your hand. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Man, I got a kind of a cough going on in my throat here. Okay, I got to take care of my little pug. We've reached the end. I hope each and every one of you is having a wonderful time out there, honestly. Always remember, each and every one of you is a quantum being walking around in quantum energy. The billionaire class is spending hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars to make sure you never realize it. You just stay the good little commodity they need you to be. Rebel. Revolt. Repent. Good luck. We're going to need it. Bye, TikTok.